Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies. And the other one is it on the market? Can I even mention it?
No, it's not on the market yet.
Not on the market? So scratch that from the record, Wes.
We're going to get to a place of profitability. Like,
yeah.
There's going to be a lot
It
of
will
companies.
come, folks.
It's going to come, but it can't
It's
exist
coming.
when we have 900 companies.
Are these infused? I'm like, I don't think so. And then I had to start thinking, I'm like, oh.
Am I going to be in trouble in 40
Yeah,
minutes?
I'm like, oh, man, wait. Hey, welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Wesley Bowles. Wes, how you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm exhausted this week.
We're just fucking complainers, aren't we? Really, this week is the craziest of crazy weeks. Wow. Yeah, for those that don't know or haven't seen this yet, we are dropping our holiday special on Christmas Eve or however you celebrate the holidays. For us, it's Christmas. We have lots of Jewish friends as well. Hanukkah's coming up. 8 crazy days. I have to break out the Adam Sandler.
I haven't watched 8 Crazy Nights in.
Or is it? It's nights. Yeah, nights.
8 Crazy Nights.
Nights.
I haven't watched that in probably 13 years. Like that's a great movie.
You know, Adam Sandler has the same birth date as me. Maybe that's why I'm so fucking crazy.
Does he?
Yeah, same birthday. Anyways, let's remind everyone that Legacies is powered by Breadstack retailers. It's probably time for an upgrade. Check out the great work they're doing. Yeah, man, I feel distraught. And there's no reason to be right now.
Let me cool your mind down with just a basic Christmas question, I guess, is give me your top 3. I need to know your top 3 Christmas movies.
Christmas Vacation, number
Okay.
one.
Griswold
Christmas Story.
classic.
Christmas Story, number 2.
Okay.
Number 3 would be tough for me. You know what? Over the last probably decade, I've gotten into like Miracle on 34th Street and It's a Wonderful Life. I love those.
Like Miracle on 34th.
Oh, hold on.
The
No,
OG?
I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah, definitely the OG. What am I thinking? Home Alone.
Okay.
Home
Yeah.
Alone. Christmas Vacation, Christmas Story. Actually, Home Alone's above A Christmas Story. But when I was a kid, I remember the trailer coming out for A Christmas Story. And I was quite young, probably 9, 8. And I still remember he's climbing up the slide, or he was holding on to the slide, and the Santa Claus is like, "You don't need that, kid. You'll poke your eye out. Ho, ho, ho." And he kicks him down the slide. It's ringing in my head constantly.
Yeah.
It's always there. But anyways, I love this time of year. It's been a crazy week. We got our holiday special episode recorded. Obviously, we have to record it earlier because Wes goes into post-production, and it was a doozy, let me tell you.
It was a big
lot
day.
there.
Big day.
But by tearing down studio, packing equipment up, and getting there and getting reset up, I mean, yeah, and then record, tear down, bring it home, sort it, pack
That's
it
right.
all back.
That's right.
I'll
do a quick shout out to Amy from that day for feeding us and keeping us hydrated and
it's funny because we're so busy working, but she's like, "You guys need to eat. You got to take a break." And I'm like, "Where's this from? Looks good. Let's eat." And then right back to it.
It was funny because I was like, "Oh, she asked me like, what do you want to eat?" And I'm like, I'm setting all this up. I'm in no mood to eat right now. Like I'm not even thinking about it. And then she goes, "What about like a veal chicken or veal sandwich?" And I'm like, And then it shows up, and I'm like, "Fuck,
oh yeah,
absolutely. This is getting eaten right now."
It was a great time, great experience. Obviously, it's our first on-site, many more to come. But we did it right, and we thank all our sponsors for that. They'll get a ton of love during that episode. So we couldn't have done it without them. It's a lot of work, and for those in the podcast world, you know exactly what I mean. For anyone that's doing on-sites, whew, man, that's so much. It's a lot.
It's a big day. Yeah, it's a big day, especially with it being our first, because we, setting up a new location is always challenging with lighting and all that stuff. And, it's a lot of equipment, but luckily, John and team in that room is amazing in the sensory room. And in the
it's like they designed it just for us.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like almost. Yeah. But I'm surprised, though, I gave you a Christmas gift. I mean, well, it's a corporate Christmas gift.
I didn't put it on because I didn't think we were ready to reveal them, but apparently
I'm revealing
I didn't
it.
get the fucking memo.
I love this. Like, this is just, this is our high-end swag now. It's not for sale.
Fuck no, it's not for sale. Not at that price.
No, but yeah, we're we're happy to rock it. I tried setting up a partnership with Reigning Champ, and they'd responded once, and then they ghosted me, and I'm like, well, fuck you, whatever.
Well, when they come crawling back eventually and go, oh, yo, we could see you all over social now. We might want to change your mind. Then we go, I don't know.
Did you see? I only caught just because it's been so crazy. Who was it? I forgot. Someone on LinkedIn had posted something about this Trump-Trudeau meeting and visit, and I guess Trump put out a tweet. I don't go into Twitter anymore or X. I stay away from it, and just because it's just a rabbit hole of information. Not because I can't, govern myself on what's negative and what's not. I'm a big boy. I can handle that. But there was something about, if it was real, I'm assuming it was real, because Trump is a bit of an egotistical maniac. But it said something, I'd like to thank the governor of Canada or the great state of Canada for the meeting or something like that. And I'm like, you fucking asshole. What a dick move. I get it. They don't really get along that well. And believe me, I do not see eye to eye with Trudeau. Especially recently. I am a card-carrying RPAL member, and, Trudeau and his government and Chrystia Freeland all over my firearms, not weapons, firearms. And I'm sorry if anyone disagrees with me, but...
Well, we're going to talk about Chrystia Freeland in a bit because Jonathan Wilson has some good stuff to say about her recently. But yeah, we'll get to that.
Well... Yeah, we'll highlight that. But one thing that we should call out, so previously we've had RadSource on, to understand that world and, irradiation, although RadSource isn't irradiation, but Urbanistic, the team behind Urbanistic Scope, that's a different Tom if you find them on Instagram. They've got a GoFundMe up. They are doing some serious testing to find out once and for all the effects of E-beam and irradiation on cannabis. I don't know what the study is entirely, but
the interesting part about this study is it's the first, from what I've read in so far on this, is it's the first type of study where they're studying the how the product is actually delivered to the consumer. It's not checking, it's just come right off the production line, right? And they're checking just right after the irradiation there, because that's not correct. You check that, it goes into packaging at that point. Who knows what's in that pack? You know what I mean? And it's not a true test of what it feels like once it lands in the customer's hands. So they are testing, okay, what does it feel? What does it test like right out of the packaging? What does it test like in situations where, it's international, right? It's being shipped to Australia, it's being shipped to Israel, whatever it is. Let's test it after that length of time, what a consumer there can expect. So they're doing the full gamut. They're checking on what's the impact on the potency, on the terpenes, all that content. I don't think it's doing any extreme long-term studies. That's the big thing I think they're highlighting, is that we still don't understand very long-term effects of this, if any. Right. But we'll note that Urbanistic does have a GoFundMe up right now. Obviously, this research is not. It's quite expensive, but it looks like they have a goal for this right now of a $15,000 campaign on GoFundMe. So if you're interested in, it's not crazy. And if you're interested in helping fund that research, you could head over. I'll post the GoFundMe link down in the description below, and you can contribute to research for irradiation.
Awesome. Yeah, it'd be good to have it just our own peace of mind. Obviously, these RadSource and others, they do their own independent testing, etc. But understanding the long term, I guess that's a good study to participate in.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of posts on it recently about again, I think consumers need to be able to, they need to be equipped to make their own choice, right? So I do agree with the a lot of people are saying there needs to be some form of symbol or standardized symbol to say, yes, this product was irradiated, or this product is certified not to be irradiated, one of the two. And
how does this transfer, Wes? I've never really paid much attention, and this is just an ignorant consumer, I guess. We understand organic to an extent, right? But I guess there's like codes buried in those little UPCs. Like if it's a 9, it's this. If it's a 0, it's this, or whatever. But do consumers pay attention? Do they care? Right? I know right now we're a relatively new industry, and I'll say new as in regulated, and products, a ton of different products in market, but it seems to me the vast majority of consumers are they just don't care. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're going to have camps of people, right? It's the same for people who look at ingredients when they go shopping at grocery stores for cereal or for anything else, right? You have those consumers who look at every single ingredient and go, if an ingredient that I can't name or spell out is listed as the first ingredient, I'm not touching
I need to get there in life.
But then you have others.
Well.
Yeah. Then you have others that just go, what's the calorie count? If it looks good, I'm going to eat it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you're always going to have that. Yeah, exactly.
Look at that box.
Yeah, that's
They're
it.
after me Lucky Charms.
Yeah, what's going to shut my kid up for the afternoon so I can relax?
Yeah,
maybe a box of Oreos. I don't know.
I wish we could get to a point where, Japan, UK, US, Canada, very much different when it comes to what they will give or provide or have allowances to provide to their consumers, right? For us, I know that, Fruit Loops, for instance, you can't use certain dyes in the UK versus Canada. Like, can't we just stop poisoning? Like, just, I was thinking the other day, I'm like, and I don't consume a ton of sugar other than certain seasons. I mean, I consume my fair share, believe me. But, I'm like looking at it going, I consume way too much sugar. Sugar is a drug. It's the worst in the world as far as I'm concerned. I have my own issues controlling that. I have my own addictions. But imagine if the government just said, you know what? Healthcare costs way too much. We can attribute sugar, smoking, this to this stuff. This stuff is just done. I don't know. Maybe we get into, too much of an iron.
Yeah, I think you take away
really.
the consumers or the society's ability to moderate themselves, right? You can't.
We can't moderate ourselves.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I think if the government overregulates too much, you take that away from. We need to put some onus back on people themselves, making their own decisions, doing their own research, which is tough these days.
And it is confusing. That's the problem.
Yeah,
there's
that's
so
the thing.
much, and we live in this world of information at our fingertips, and we're completely distracted all the time by so much that's going on. So, how do you pay attention to that, everything that's going in? Although, I think it was Dr. Huberman. Have you ever seen any of his stuff online?
I've
He
heard the
basically
name,
said, listen, stick to your meat, eggs, stay away from anything processed, no sugar, no bread, no pasta. Just stay away from all that stuff and you'll be healthy. I'm looking at it going, it makes a lot of sense, but then is it bland? Is it boring? Right? Where's butter in there? Where's this in there? I don't know.
Well, speaking of sugar, I had no self-control after we recorded the holiday episode, and Stewart Farms happened to send over those beautiful.
God. Did you eat the whole box?
I shared those. Those fucking chocolates in that box were outrageous.
How do you say it?
These were not infused, by the way. These were just nice chocolates that he sent over.
So I kept them in the box, and obviously it picked up some cannabis scent, right? It had. So as I'm going through all the equipment yesterday, getting it reorganized, getting it ready for our next on-site, I'm like, oh, I want one. So I start eating one, and I'm like, oh, I better save some. I bring them upstairs and put them on the counter so Tanya can. She's like, are these infused? I'm like, no, they're not infused. Like, how would they infuse them? And then I started thinking, and I'm like, why do they smell like that? And then I'm like, wait, hold on. I ate like 3 in one go, and I was fine. So no, they're not infused, but they had picked up the smell,
the smell of that
scent.
Daily Grape.
Yeah, and she's like, are these infused? I'm like, I don't think so. And then I had to start thinking, I'm like, oh.
Am I going to be in trouble in 40
yeah,
minutes?
I'm like, oh man, wait, are they? Did they figure out a way to?
There was a little raspberry chocolate one in there that was fucking.
I haven't got to that one.
It's raspberry cream with it's delicious.
God. See, this is what happens. It's one holiday after another, right? I've got this monster fucking fruit cake from Costco. I don't know if I have time to still do it. I want to infuse it with rum. Like, I'm not a big drinker, but
yeah.
I want to get rum on it somehow, so I need to research that. But this season comes up, and I'm like, come to Papa.
It's funny you say that. My holiday season treat is actually, and I don't know why. I think it's just because my dad used to love it too. But it's a perfectly chilled glass bottle of Coke. You know those glass bottles with the Mexican cane sugar?
Yeah.
I don't know why. They just hit different at Christmas. They're fucking so good.
What? Like, why? What?
I don't know. I know that especially when you get the ones with the real cane sugar from Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Those nice tall glass.
Yeah,
I think Costco's got them on right now.
Oh, you can get them there?
Yeah, you can get them at Costco right now. But oh my god, so I don't know why they hit different at Christmas. They're just
it's because of the season, and we had snow, and I'm like, because it's travel, right? And so the day that we had to go to Joint Craft, it's raining, and I'm like, okay, it's better than snow, because that's where my anxieties come from, the planning, because I'm just an over planner, right? And it's like, do we have this? Do we have that? Okay, what's the weather going to be like? What's this going to be like? Okay, it's not the actual episodes or recording. That I love. That's just like second nature. But my stress was from that. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's just get through this on site. And then we can coast through Christmas. Not mean coast, but like my anxieties can kind of go away. Snowed. We get all the snow and then it warms up. And now there's no fucking snow again.
Yeah, I went outside this morning in a sweater to grab a coffee. It was like, dude, it's nice out here. What's going on?
I like snow at Christmas. I don't know how people they take off at Christmas, go to the Caribbean. I understand. I would do that after. And anytime we've done it after, like in January or something like that. But I don't know if I could be away from the snow.
I spent the Christmas season once in Las Vegas, and that was pretty nice.
Did it feel like Christmas?
No, it didn't really feel like Christmas, but I remember specifically being in the lazy river at the Mandalay Bay thinking, my friends right now are in 4 feet of snow and this is fantastic.
How long ago was this? Is that when you were at Ample?
That might have been early days Ample. That might have been my first year at Ample. Actually.
Yeah. I think I remember something about that. Anyways, okay. J-Dub, our boy, Jonathan Wilson.
Mr. Wilson.
Dude, he has picked up every rock there is and turned them over and double checked. And
I'm labeling him our Arcana Warrior. Is what that's his.
How do we continue to support him? How do we ensure that his message is getting out there? It's one thing. The industry can become an echo chamber, right? And we need to ensure that the consumer is hearing this. We always say that change, reform comes when the consumers lobby together with a united voice. That's what affects change. But one of the biggest things, and startling to me, and you can add in the additional because you've been following it a lot closer, is these provinces with the agreements that they had signed. We're just looking, please honor your agreements, right? And these were that the provinces would not profit on the backs of these hard-working cannabis companies.
Right.
And they are, your OCS, your BCLD, BCLDB, I forget them all. I don't care what the acronyms are. If you're a provincial regulator, wholesaler, and you're profiting, it's not like it's $100,000, couple $100,000, few $100,000. We're talking millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And the most startling of all was the stat that you shared with me. 36% of all of Canada's CCAAs are from the cannabis industry. Hello, there's an issue. That's an issue.
I'll report to you that this is from a letter that was sent to Jonathan. I'll link the post down that we're below where Jonathan posted this, but this is from a letter that was specifically sent to the Minister of Finance for her to update her, Chrystia Freeland, on everything that was going on in the cannabis space.
Yeah.
This letter was actually from 2023. So it's not 2024 letter. This new letter has not come out yet, but this is as of 2023. But yeah, 36% of all CCAA filings. And it specifically says in this letter that Chrystia Freeland would have read, it specifically says, no legal cannabis producers are consistently profitable. Mm-hmm. That line is in that report,
right,
as well as all the other stuff in there. And what's interesting to me is when Jonathan reminded me that this is actually from 2023, not 2024. What this means to me is that team, Chrystia Freeland and that finance team, has read this letter, knows everything we're going through. And you'll remember, Tom, a few months back, the beer industry got an excise tax break.
Oh yeah.
So this was all known to them. And the beer industry still got that excise tax break instead of us, right?
Yeah.
And again, nothing against alcohol, whatever. If they got a break, that's fine. They might need it, but
just give us a reason. Just give us a reason, right? If you want to slap us in the face, at least tell us why, right?
Right.
Just provide go, yeah, we really just want to profit off you. We don't care if you fail, right? I have no other understanding or reasoning behind why they would allow this to continue like this. So anyways, let's continue to pay very close attention to what Jonathan is saying. The videos are awesome, but
yeah, you asked before what people can do to help get this to consumers and stuff like that. Really the best approach. I mean, we're going to share this as much as we can, but Jonathan is tagging, Trudeau, he's tagging Chrystia Freeland, he's tagging Health Canada, a bunch of people in all of his posts. Mm-hmm. The best thing you can do at right now as well is if you see these posts, like them and just comment on them, because what that does is
traction.
Your network at that point starts to see stuff you've commented and liked on, and that's really all we can hope for. You don't have to put any meaningful comments in.
Just throw a thumbs down on it, a thumbs up, whatever.
Thumbs down. Just like it, and not only will the people who are tagged on this start to see that shit, a lot of people are seeing this, but your network starts to see stuff you've liked, and we can continue spreading it. But
yeah, it's just it's killing
Jonathan's not going to stop with this, and we're not going to stop.
We
supporting him
shouldn't.
through it,
There's no reason, and let's not forget that Crystal Cure and the predicament they're in is mostly due to this. I'll say it is all due to this, but I mean, fucking come on.
Man, I can't wait for them to come back with a fiery vengeance. Like,
yeah, and I'll bring it back to, we had put on Sundays, we put out our quote posts, and David Brown had said, a lot of these businesses that are failing just didn't make sense. And while I can agree, there's a lot of good businesses that are failing because this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. So anyways, we got a jam-packed episode coming up for you today. We've got Graydon from White Ash. He's coming on to join us. We'll help understand. I think if there's anywhere to understand what's going on in the industry, it's understanding employment and the shifts in employment and what people are seeing. I see a lot of individuals open to work lately in the cannabis industry. And when you see 36% of all Canadian CCAAs, yeah, that makes sense. And then we got a special treat. I'm actually wearing the hat. Origine Nature. We've got Mr. David Bowe and Alex on today. That's going to be wild. They just got back from MJ and Las Vegas. You're talking about Las Vegas. Let's see what kind of shape they're in. Let's see what kind of stories they can share with us.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
We'll be right back after this break.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Graydon Welbourn of White Ash Group. Graydon, how you doing, my friend? It's been a while.
I'm good, man. Happy to be here. I'm excellent. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Very well. The last, what was it, like a month ago, we tried to have you on. And you're like, I got to go to Halifax or somewhere.
Yeah.
Or you're just like, fuck these guys.
Yeah, no, I just didn't want to talk to you guys that day. No, I had to jet set real quick. So I appreciate you letting me come back on the show and reschedule.
Letting you.
So, yeah.
Come on. We've shared time together. Wes asked me earlier, I'm going to ask you right off the hop. Wes, I forgot. You asked me, what are my favorite Christmas movies or holiday movies, depending. Can you see that?
You have a Christmas Story glass? Or is it the Griswold?
No, I've even got the Chicago Blackhawks Griswold jersey. I'm going to wear that next. I should have wore that. Anyways.
I guess we need to ask Graydon off the top, though.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah. What are his 3 favorite Christmas movies?
Okay, there's...
Or Hanukkah.
That's true. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go a classic and say Elf. Elf is a classic.
You can't
for
do
me.
3. See, Elf. I forgot Elf.
Great pick.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Okay. So Elf. And then I think it's called Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way.
Arnold
And it's an
Schwarzenegger.
Arnold movie. Yeah,
That's the
where
one.
he's got to get the superhero like action figure for his kid.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Was it Action Man? Was that his name? I can't remember what that
Yeah, I
superheroes.
think
Or Turbo Man. That was him.
Turbo Man.
Turbo Man.
Nice.
That was it.
Nice. Nice. And for me, actually, a Christmas movie is Lord of the Rings because I watch it every Christmas. So,
okay.
Well,
That's,
here's a fact about that.
The
Here's a
big
fact
question.
about that. It is actually a Christmas movie because the Fellowship actually sets out from, I think it's from the Shire or from Rivendell on Christmas Day. So
I know.
it's a
All
Christmas
right.
movie.
Okay.
The
back.
big question then.
Wes knows.
The big question. Here's an even bigger, more important question. The most important question you will get this episode is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Wes, you be quiet for a second.
To me, it's not.
Okay, this is over.
Yeah, he's in the doghouse now. It's done.
To me, it's always
just-
been. Wes, what are
it's
your
just-
thoughts?
I toe the line, actually. I toe the line. I see it. I see it more than Lord of the Rings, obviously, just because there's a heavier
Sure,
Christmas
okay,
element.
yeah.
But is it it's Christmas, I need to go watch a movie for the
What's
season?
the lore around that? Like, why is that? I don't even
I don't
know.
know. So from what I recall, and we're never going to get to anything about White Ash Group. So
Yeah, I was just going to talk movies. It's
from
great.
what I recall, if I'm correct, Wes, maybe you can look this up quick. I'm pretty sure it was released around Christmas. And there are, obviously this is taking place during I forget the name of the corporation. It's their Christmas party that's going on. And then he has to come in and save the day.
Okay.
I think that's why people are like, no, it's a Christmas movie. I remember it coming out or seeing it around Christmas for the first time. To me, it's always been a Christmas movie and there's elements
All
of
right.
Christmas in it.
Here, I had the 7 top reasons why.
I don't want to know anyone else's top reasons. I'm just curious when it was released.
It takes place during the holiday Christmas party. It has Christmas music in the movie. John's
Okay.
wife has a Christmassy name. I don't know why that matters.
Yeah.
There are presents involved. Santa Claus makes an appearance. It snows at the end, and
That's got Christmas written all over it.
Okay, that sounds like a Christmas
it's a
movie.
Christmas
That's fine.
movie.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
And I will say, like the other one too, there's so many. I just moved into Christmas movie mode last night. like
Nice.
like as of last night. But Chronicles of Narnia is probably one of my favorites since it was released. I love Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was
Yeah, the first one's
so
really
awesome.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first
The
one's
Tim
really,
Allen
really
Santa Claus movies are
See,
next level.
you
Just saying.
can't.
That's my
You
that's
can't
my
say
pick.
3. We got to do top 20s. I think
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it comes to this,
So-
especially as you age, right? There's a new one coming out. Anyways, enough about that.
good. I love
Graydon,
it.
how I loved when we've connected a few times. One was just the pre-me, get to know each other. Then we got to see each
Yeah.
other at Can Exec Group, and you had to bounce, right? Weren't you supposed to be on a panel? And you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but
Yeah,
I
I
gotta
had
bounce.
to bounce. I was. There was the panel kept kind of moving, and I had to be somewhere, and so unfortunately, I couldn't be on
Right.
the panel. I had some prior engagements,
Busy guy.
but
Busy
yeah.
guy, jet setting. Anyways,
yeah. But
when we
I like the Can Exec Summit. It's good.
it's
I was
one
there.
of the best,
It's
man,
this-
if not the best.
Yeah, it was the second year. The year before I actually emceed, which was really, really cool.
Oh,
And that
cool.
was a lot of fun. And then yeah, Darwin does a pretty good job, and
He's
there's a
fantastic.
lot of people that show up, and I find it's actually just like it's nice to just have a lot of decision makers in a room, and
Yeah.
everyone's just kind of talking on the same level, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think one of the things I'd like to understand, I've seen a lot of shifting and open to works happening, especially across LinkedIn. We'll get into that, but White Ash Group is your primary focus. You got some other things on the go as well, because that's
Yeah.
what entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
At what point in time were you like, what were you doing before White Ash Group? And then when did you go, hey, conceivable moment, it's time to start this. I got to do this.
Prior to White Ash, I was working at a recruitment firm. We were doing tech recruitment. It was a Canadian national tech recruitment firm. We were one of the bigger firms in Canada, and I worked there for 3 years. And the clients I was dealing with were all financial clients, so all mostly banks and like small fintech companies.
Mhm.
And I moved up pretty quick in that company. I started as a recruiter, and then I became an account executive, and then I was sort of like the default, like de facto director. And I'm sure if some of my old colleagues watch this, they'd probably laugh at that. But it was just sort of the way that things were set up was that I was the most senior person in our little team, and then when the director would go away, I would kind of like do my thing, and then I was up to be a director, and it was a good company. I learned a ton, and there was a lot of things I liked about the company and a lot of things I didn't like about the company, and I think I have a sort of a common story in terms of someone going from a company to starting a company in the same industry or vein, which was, I was 25 and I was like, I can do this better. I just, I had a little bit of that sort of just ambition mixed with like, just sort of blind confidence. So one year I billed, a large chunk of money, and I didn't earn much on my paycheck. And I was like, okay, I just made this company like over $2 million. Like, what, like, this is kind of crazy. I didn't make very much money this year. And I thought, okay, well, if I can just find a way to do this for myself and keep half of the money, I'd be really happy. And then, during that time, I was still trying to start companies in the cannabis industry on the side. So my first sort of side hustle in the cannabis industry was I tried to make an app, actually a delivery app in 2016. I was dating a girl at the time, and her older brother worked at a big consulting firm, and he was a big pothead, and he didn't want to go into the stores on Queen Street to buy cannabis.
Yeah.
So I ended up being like his guy, and I would just go and buy him weed every week. Like, it was kind of absurd. I was like, dude, you can
You're
just go into
legal
these
drug
stores.
dealer dropper
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, you can just go into these stores. He's like, no, you don't get it. Like, if someone sees me in there, like, I can't have my reputation. I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw that as like an opportunity and thought, there's probably a need for like a delivery app, like an Uber Eats sort of, that's sort of catered to that type of person, not the person that's like really into cannabis culture, but just enjoys cannabis and, probably wears a suit Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And so I, developed a bit of an app. And, I was 24. I didn't get very far. Apps are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I had to drop that. But, I was like talking to stores and kind of like beginning to the genesis of something. And then I dropped that and I was still working my recruiting job. And then I thought, hey, okay, maybe I'll just like make a cannabis clothing line. So I started doing that, and I was connecting with manufacturers in China and things like that. And then I was like, this isn't where my passion is. I'm not really passionate about clothing, but I was just trying to be involved in the industry somehow.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to my older brother, Jameson, he runs a genetics company now. And he was doing commercial real estate at the time in Calgary, and he phoned me. This would have been 2017, I think. And he said, you should just do what you do, but for cannabis companies. And I was like, oh, and it seems so obvious. Like, it's like, why didn't I think of that right away? I was thinking of these extremely difficult things, like a clothing company, like an app.
Screw everything I know, all the experience I have.
Let's
let's do this.
Let's
develop some machine learning technology,
Exactly. So then I was like, oh yeah, that is super obvious. So then I started going to, cannabis meetups and conferences and things like that outside of work. And I came up with the idea for what would become White Ash, which is, a recruitment firm that's dedicated to the cannabis industry, because I figured I actually had a viable business idea, because, I was at a big recruitment firm and no one was talking about cannabis. And I was like, it's coming, guys. And no one was talking about it. None of our business development team, no one. And then I thought, okay, well, the big recruitment firms on Bay Street in Toronto, they're not going to touch cannabis with a 10-foot pole for a long time, even after it becomes legalized, because they've got their blue chip clients. So, excuse me. And then I figured, okay, well, the cannabis, cowboys, the trailblazers, these crazy people who are making these LPs that are putting their lives on the line, basically, they're going to want to really feel good about who their external partners are. And they're going to want to feel like those partners understand them. So I thought I had a bit of a very narrow but very deep market.
Okay.
And I had that idea, and then meanwhile, I had been introduced to a gentleman via email, and that was in 2017. I had been introduced to Jerome, who's now my business partner, and I got some misinformation about him, and he got some misinformation about me. I was told that he wanted that, here's this guy, you should talk to him. He's trying to make a construction recruitment firm. And I was like, I don't want to be involved in construction. I don't want to meet this guy. And then he got told that I was trying to make a tech recruitment firm. And he was like, I don't want to do tech. I don't want to meet this guy. So finally, our mutual connections is just like, will you please just meet each other? So we finally meet each other. I remember I was late for the meeting, and I ran to the meeting, ran to Starbucks. And then I sat down. I'm like, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, what are you working on? I hear you're working on stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to make a cannabis recruitment firm. And he's like, I'm trying to make a cannabis recruitment firm. And I was like, what? I was like, well, no, you're not. He's like, yeah.
Where'd this broken telephone happen?
Yeah,
Construction, tech recruitment, meanwhile, not even close on either side of that.
Exactly. I was like, oh, what? And he's like, yeah. And he starts telling me about like the companies he's talking to, and I tell him about the companies I'm talking to. And I was like, whoa, this is a crazy moment that's happening. And he had a couple like early clients, and he had like a job for me to work on with him. It was like to find a maintenance manager for MediFarm. And I found a person in 24 hours and had them ready to go. And he was just like, I don't know how did you do that so fast? And I was like, this is just what I do. Like, let's go kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then about like a month after that, we were like, let's be business partners. And it was pretty crazy because we really didn't know much about each other. We were just like, you have the same idea, I have the same idea. We both decided we talked a bit about like having a global vision and really wanting to be like the sort of white glove service of cannabis recruitment. And yeah, even before that, I'd actually tried to work for another cannabis recruitment firm, but they didn't want me. I said I'd work for free, and then So there was like some other competitors, but I was like, okay, I think we can do things a little bit different. And I had a bit of a vision. I came with the name. I was like, let's call it White Ash Group. And then that was in like September of 2018. And then by, July 2019, I was able to quit my job. I basically closed some deals outside of work with some LPs across Ontario and the Maritimes. And I was like, I'm ready to jump ship. And so I quit my comfy job and then here we are.
So how do you build that network? Because obviously they're different, but the process to build a network and a candidate pool and that sort of thing, and then obviously clients on the other side, is it literally just grind and hustle? Like, you've got to be at the events, you've got to be emailing, you got to be following them socially on LinkedIn and Instagram and all over the place. Like, how do you build? Don't share all your trade secrets. We don't need another
I'd be happy
but still, yeah. I mean, how do you, because you're almost going from zero, right? In a way.
Yeah.
Because I would think that the vast majority, I mean, you're doing tech recruitment previously, those individuals. Now, some cannabis companies, yeah, sure, they need tech people. But otherwise, like, how do you go about that?
It was, I mean, you're absolutely right. It was just, I think had I in the moment, had I been like, okay, I need to be able to build a pool of like 10,000 people, that would have been so daunting.
Mm-hmm.
I just started so small. I was like, can I have a conversation with someone? Like,
Right.
Will someone get on the phone with me? Can I get someone on the phone? And so I would like skip out of work. I'd be like, I'm going to go get some donuts for everyone. And then I would just go and make a phone call to someone at a cannabis company, come back with some Timbits. And I would just do that, rinse and repeat like all day. And then I would do that at night. I would just, reach out to people. And I had so little knowledge of the industry, but it was one of those things where I was like, I can learn as I go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had done in everything in my life prior.
Yeah.
Very much like on the go, like type of learner.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just really just a grind, just trying to, at the start, it was like no one wanted to talk to us, especially on the client side, because it was
why
like,
is that? Like, would it be because you're a younger company? Like what?
Yeah, I think it was like we had just there was very little credibility. Like we didn't have many wins to point to.
But these companies didn't have any credibility either at the time. They were just, just starting. So
I know.
If beggars can't be choosers, right? Like, I'm curious, like, because I mean, you already have the skill set, right? One is understanding how to qualify a candidate, how are their resumes looking, with their online profiles, which are, I would assume, crucially important these days as well.
Totally.
But you have your soft and your hard skills that you're assessing. And really, it's kind of cookie cutter in a way until we fast forward, and we'll get to this because culture obviously plays a very big role in the success of keeping these individuals employed. So sorry, I was just doing what I do.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Going crazy all over the place.
I think it's at the start. It was just, it was a lot of just, it's like hundreds of LinkedIn messages going out like every day. I would me and my business partner would sit in a coffee shop and we would just grind out messages and emails. And then we would do a cold call afternoon and we would, pace his kitchen and we would just like, I'd make a cold call, then he would make a cold call. And they were horrible.
Which side was more important at first? Was it landing clients looking for candidates or building a pool of candidates, or were both equally of importance?
Both was it was always, this is an interesting thing, it's always like the chicken or the egg in that sense. So we initially were it's always harder to get the client. Like that's just how it is in recruitment. It's hard to get the person who's gonna has to pay the bill, know. We like I am very confident in being able to find people because it was like once we had the assignment, we were like, okay, well, we have to go and find the person now. So you're kind of like, you're putting a fire under your ass, so to speak. But as we've evolved, we're now doing it the other way, where we have such a good pool that we go to clients and we're like, we have these type of people and we know you're going to need this type of person. So now because we have that built out, we're able to actually just like go and sell that. Okay. While we didn't really have that initially, we had to just really sell ourselves and like our capabilities.
Well, that's one of my questions. I assume in the earlier days, it was quite challenging to find, in a new industry, there's not a ton of people in the cannabis industry to pull from. Did you find success in looking and pulling from certain sectors or different industries? And were there standouts? Were there like the people who come from here really are successful in cannabis after? Or what was that like trying to find, you know?
Yeah, at the start, it really was pulling people in from other industries. You know, initially there was a lot of companies that, you know, wanted us to go after people in pharma, but like people in pharma don't go to cannabis. That's just like
some of their QA.
And
we know
yeah,
those
QA,
facilities
sure.
that have pharma QAs, they don't fucking operate.
Yeah. The pharma QAs don't work in cannabis. It's just like it's way too rigid for the way cannabis is set up. I mean, I know some great QAs that have come from pharma, so I'm not saying this is a rule, but initially it was that, and then obviously tobacco and you know, alcohol and beer. I found that, you know, we brought a lot of people in from, you know, like Molson and these kind of companies, but it ended up being that just only a very small set of them stuck. A lot of people got into the industry, and then, you know, this is the story of cannabis, right? People came in and then left. That's really like
and did they leave? So were they enticed? They come in, they're used to some more structure. You know, these companies have been existing, and then they're like, what the fuck did you bring me into?
Exactly. It's like, okay, well, the company is in a trailer and has plastic fold up desks, and
my SOPs are written on sticky notes.
Some paper on the wall, and you know, everyone's wearing sweatpants, and it's like, oh, this is in Molson. Like, what the hell have I gotten myself into?
Right.
So there was a lot of that, but then I would say, like, you know, probably 75% to 80% of those people have left because they're like, this isn't my cup of tea. You know, you have to, especially in the early days, you had to really want to be in cannabis and like to stick around long term. So that was like a big learning for us, obviously. I mean, we now know, like, we have a better idea, I would say, of like what is going to make someone stick in the cannabis industry. And we're also getting to a point, I think, now where there's a large group of people in the Canadian cannabis industry that are like, no, I'm here for life. So like, sign me up. You know, there's a lot of people like that now. Now, will those people get tired? Possibly. I'm sure some of them will, and they'll leave, and then, you know, new people will come in. But at the start, it was a lot of people coming in and then realizing, oh, I cannot do this, and leaving. And so it was like a mix of that, and then a mix of, you know, the salaries were insane back then. Like, the biggest salaries I've ever worked in my cannabis career were at the first year of White Ash. Like,
and was that just to draw them in? Was it because capital was so readily available? What was causing
capital
it?
was so available, and it was like, oh, well, you know, we have this endless amount of money, so like, give
the man what he wants.
Like whatever we need. Let's just close. Let's you know, we had companies phoning us like, we need a president, and I'm like, what is the president gonna do? They're like, they're just gonna be the face of the company. They don't really have to do anything, and the salary's $400,000. And I'm like, what? Like, wait, what do you mean they don't have to do anything? Well, they just have to kind of like be the figure and like talk to magazines. And I'm like, what is this? Like, you know,
I think those roles are gone. I was going to say, I don't recall you ever trying to recruit me for anything. I would have been down. What do I have to do? No problem.
I think you need to save $320,000 and hire a PR person instead. Maybe, you know.
Yeah. So what were, in those early days of White Ash Group, what were those most coveted roles? I mean, I have my own ideas, but what was the most coveted, but also what was the hardest to fill? Maybe it's the same.
I don't know if there was I don't know if I could say coveted, but you know, like in the early, I mean, it's crazy. Like, you know, in the first year, maybe we worked on like 14 jobs or something, and now we work on like 30 a month. So it's way crazier. But I would say at the start, it was a lot of these like, you know, big like chief medical officer and like VP of science. Like, I think everyone was really like, oh, we're gonna invent something amazing. Like, a lot of the companies we worked with were like, we are gonna make something that no one else can make. And it's like, no, you're not. That's just not true. That's not happening. So it was that, and then we did a lot of head growers, a lot of master growers. which was funny because when the industry was starting, there was a controversy around the term master grower.
I still hate it.
Yeah,
I still hate it.
It's a weird, I know, it's kind of funny. It's like there's no other industry where you'd be like master something.
Well, there's
like,
do they call them brewmaster? I don't know if they still call them a brewmaster. They probably have some scientific name. But how the fuck do you recruit for a head grower, master grower? I mean, especially those early days.
Oh, it was really hard.
Like, send me a bag. let me see how good this. Show me pictures of your crops. Like,
it was. I mean, that was the thing. It was like, and there's so many people that got those jobs that sort of just like duped people and were like, because these companies and like didn't really have any way of knowing, unless they had, ties to the gray market, to the black market,
right?
Then they didn't really know what anyone's capabilities were. And, I heard stories of like, that people hiring master growers who would just, go and meditate by the plants for hours. And that was like their method. And then they were like, no, we're trying to grow at scale here. Like, we can't have you doing that.
You can't grow one plant, guy.
Yeah. Like,
so I guess
there's all sorts of stories.
I guess that's interesting.
Nothing wrong with meditation. Hey, I love a meditation session.
Daily right here. But
I guess that's an interesting question, though. Do you know, or have you even put any thought to? Have you seen more success from companies that started with that master grower because they already knew they could grow great cannabis and then grew into a full business, or has it been more successful from the side of they knew how to start a business but they needed that master grower piece, right?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. Like I've seen both work. Like I know, for instance, like Rubicon's head of cultivation, Mick. He's like incredible, and he's comes from legacy days. He's like really knows his stuff, and he's they're a good marriage of like, this guy really knows how to grow and these people know how to run a business and it like works.
Yeah.
So shout out to Rubicon. They're doing a great job. But there's other times too, where it's like, it just doesn't click, like you have to have, cannabis is so difficult because it's like the ingredients are coming from all different worlds, right? And you're kind of putting them all together and, you don't necessarily like have, the good growers don't necessarily get along with the good businessmen,
You say not necessarily. No, they don't get along in most cases.
So they don't get along. And so that's like an inherent problem that companies have to deal with, that it just exists. And that's just the nature of the beast. So I think that's a challenge. And, there's companies who they're there to make money. And then there's growers who are like, this is my love. This is like my passion. And those things don't click sometimes, when they're put in the same room, in the same, operation and balance sheet. So I think over time, I think right now in the industry, like we're seeing less of the like head grower position come up. The industry sort of seems to go in waves. Like for us, it was like, we noticed a lot of initially when we started the company, it was like, we need a bunch of growers. All of our clients were hiring growers. And then it was like, we need a ton of QA because you need QAs. Once you have something, you've got to have the QA, obviously. So that made sense. And then there was that time where everyone had grown way too much. So then what did they need? They needed salespeople. So then it was like 1 year, all we did was hire salespeople because everyone had so much supply and they're like, we need to get rid of this. So we need more salespeople. And then the salespeople has kind of dipped. And then, it's been a little bit more season of marketing because now brand is really like matters and marketing really matters. So it all kind of like goes in these interesting sort of patterns and waves that they're not fully predictable, but they're slightly predictable.
I was going to say, you must have the most unique perspective, right? Because you're firsthand in a lot of cases, right? Where, you've got your probably clients, I would say, on a consistent basis. But let me ask you this, because I've seen this, background in marketing, working in agency side, working on both sides of it, really. Times get tough, budgets get tight. One of the first things is a marketing budget cut, right? Which is just fucking crazy to me. It's like,
Mhm.
economic pressure should be, now I double down on my marketing, and good
Yeah.
companies understand that, which is, okay, we really need to increase here. But on the flip side of that, do you see the recruitment? And I don't mean just because of employment. I mean, companies making that decision saying, oh, you know what, we're not going to pay, White Ash Group X. We're just going to recruit ourselves
Mhm.
instead. Like, do you see
Yeah.
that? Is that similar?
Yeah. I mean, that happens to us a lot for sure. There's some companies that, they are like, we just can't, we can't afford this, or we don't want to pay this. The thing that to me, the thing I find kind of like funny is that the way I sort of see my profession is kind of interesting, because it's kind of like everyone in their life at some point has hired someone. Once you get to a certain level in your career, you probably like interviewed someone and hired someone. But I've hired like thousands of people at this point. So,
Yeah.
so like, and also I don't do my taxes. I could probably figure it out, but I don't do my taxes. I get an
Right.
accountant to do it. You know what I mean? Because he's done it 1,000 times. It's the same kind of thing. And I find that there's, companies will come to us and they'll be like, oh, we want to work with you. And then they'll decide, actually, we're just going to go do it ourselves. And then inevitably they phone me in 3 months and they're at the same place they were 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And they've wasted all this time now
Mhm.
trying to recruit this person that they thought they could find themselves. And it just ends up that they're like spinning their tires. They don't have the proper processes or strategy or just the network and ability to do that. And they
Mhm.
also have things like running a business to do,
Right.
that takes a lot of time. So
Mhm.
but it's one of those things where it's like, I get it. If some companies are like, we can't afford you right now, then, it's totally fine. I'm not judgmental, and I'm not a like hard salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm in it for the long run. So like I have companies where it's like, I've been talking to them for years, and then
Mhm.
they eventually they phone me and they're like, hey, I need your help now. And it's totally fine. I totally
Yeah.
get that,
Wait, you also strike me, because I want to ask, like, how do you, obviously culture is a important topic, right? And it's something to be considered when you're recruiting for that. I caught quite a bit of your time with Emma, right? You're talking
Oh yeah,
culture,
that was a
right?
great chat. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so true. I mean, Wes and I were heavily involved in the ramp up at Ample, 136 hirings inside of 6 months. We had
Yeah, it's crazy.
recruiters, we had internal recruiters. Like, it was chaos. If any
Yeah.
amount of resource went to one area in that company at the time, it was recruitment. But the challenge for us in a lot of cases, and this will turn into a question, but the challenge for us was, we had a lot of people that wanted to be associated with cannabis and the cannabis industry. And in this case, we're tech, but we're servicing, cannabis customers. So they would come in, and we find very quickly, they're like, this is not a cultural fit. This hire does not make sense. They thought, yeah, we have fun. We're a tech company, right? So tech fun, cannabis fun, but at the same time, we've got deadlines. We've got to meet these deadlines. And some were a little too lackadaisical in some cases. Some came in a little too buttoned up, and they're like, whoa, these guys are off their fucking rocker. Like, what, they're riding segways around the office. What are they doing? But how do you get to know? So I have company, whatever, Legacies, cannabis grow, and I approach White Ash. I'm like, this is my culture. How do you know that that's, without what I'm telling you? Is it, you got to meet with the leaders, you have to understand them. Like, how do you identify and understand the culture of the company so that you can then understand? Because it sounds to me there's a lot of psychology involved here.
Yeah.
Did you study psychology?
I love psychology. I've read a lot of psychology books, and I took it in university a little bit, but I would say it's hard to properly define, but to me, it's like, first of all, I think you just have to be like the type of person that is interested in people to begin with. So that's just, my life revolves around people. I'm in a people business, so I'm just genuinely interested in people.
Yeah.
And I'm very
a lot of people have said, oh, I'm a people person, which in a lot of cases I'll go, yeah, it's bullshit. But for you, I know it has to be.
I am. Yeah,
but you are.
Yes. and I'm because of that, I'm very like observant and like empathetic and like highly sensitive in a lot of ways. So it's that, and then it's like you said, spending time with the leaders. If I can go into the facility or into the office or into the company in some way, that's ideal.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the time when recruitment doesn't work, it's because there's just not enough information. It's like you're just filling an order. I think we really do our best work. Like, I work with some clients and I know them so well that I just am like, here's the person and this is the person.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to interview anyone else.
Right.
I'll let you interview a few other people.
Sure.
But this
Make
is
it
the
look
person.
good.
Yeah. I'm like, this is the person. And then
Yeah.
I end up being right because it's like, I'm actually so heavily embedded in those companies and I'm not like, I'm an outside partner, but I see myself as an extension of them because I'm getting to know them and their like mission. And, for us, it's like one thing we like to do is like, let's get to know multiple people in the company, not just the head of HR.
Right.
Love dealing with the head of HR, but I want to know, what's going on in the rest of the company because then I can get a full picture of like, where is this person sliding into?
Yeah.
Where are they going to fit? And just the more time that you can spend with your clients, just the better. And I think, because we've been around for a while, there was a lot of companies that we've worked with where we like really start to get to know like, oh, this person is going to be great for that company. Like they're not going to work over there, but like they're going to fit in with that kind of vibe and culture there.
Yeah.
And then, I think like Emma had mentioned too on the chat, just being like actually thoughtful and intentional about what your company culture is and actually like building it and not necessarily like letting it just happen.
I was going to ask like how, that's one of the call outs. And what I caught was I've seen this a bunch of times, right? I've been in a lot of different careers. And letting a culture just form without some sort of, I've always typically seen it from a leadership down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it true that that's how the culture will, formulate? In a lot of cases, I think it is. But there's a danger in just letting it build into what it is organically as well, I think. Is that correct?
I think so too. I believe that. I think that there has to be some room for like magic to happen, but I think there has to be some like sort of intentional shaping and direction.
Yeah. And not necessarily mission boards and vision boards. Like, I mean, those are important, but half the time, let's face it, those are fucking garbage. No one, they Google it. Nowadays, they're chat GPT in it. I need a vision for my company. This is what we do, right? I need a mission. We're on a mission to do this and we're going to do this different, right?
I don't think it's that. Like, I think it really, I mean, I'm thinking from like White Ash perspective, I think it's just like how you show up as a leader and, the things that you value and are important to you and how you communicate those things. Yeah. I think that has a trickle down effect and that sort of like shapes the culture. Like, okay, you have a culture about excellence. Well, like, are you, do you have like spelling mistakes in your emails? Like then you don't have a culture about excellence.
That's a major turn off for me. I don't know why. It's just one of the worst. And I'm not even, nowadays I just throw shit at Google and go, you figure out what I'm trying to say. Like Apple, this is why I get paid thousands.
Either that or you throw it at me.
Or I'll throw it at Wes. I'm like, are we close here? Right. And I used to be such a stickler for everything. And now I just, bleh. Here you go. Figured out what I just said. That's not how you spell his name, idiot. Right? Thinking I'm all high. But okay, so we understand that culture is important, right? And I won't go too deep into that, but we discussed this. I think it was just maybe our meet and greet when we finally got some time together. But I had asked, and because I see this across the space, is there's this echo of the cannabis company or cannabis industry is maturing, and we see that witnessed by the companies are maturing. You had to get to a point where you were helping to develop onboarding processes. Like, whoever thought of an onboarding process? And how important for anyone listening right now that doesn't have one? How important is an onboarding process for the success of that candidate and their longevity at the company?
Yeah, I'll take it a step back. The recruitment process is such a microcosm of your company and how you do everything. Because if you're, it takes you 2 weeks to get back to candidates, that candidate is going to assume that things move slow in your company and that it's hard to get people aligned and it's hard to get people together to have a conversation about something important. And that assumption is probably pretty true. there's obviously, you can give people and companies the benefit of the doubt, but I really believe that we're moving into an era of like employees and candidates and applicants really being a lot more specific and particular with where they're placing their bets. And this isn't just in cannabis, this is across the board. You can just sense this from everyone. And, if you read anyone about, anything about hiring or people trying to get jobs, you hear this, but it's really like the recruitment process is such a reflection of the company and just how you treat people and how organized you are and how do you have timelines and you have a process. And then the onboarding is a continuation of that. So, every touch point you have with someone before they get into a company is really an opportunity to say something about your company and strengthen the relationship. And just like, companies have to remember now that like there's so many other companies, there's so many options, just because you live in like, companies live in their own world, right? And sometimes I have to remind them of that when, candidates have multiple offers, and I'm talking to a company, I'm like, 3 other companies want this person. And they're like, what? How could that be? And it's like, well, they're looking for a job. They're not just going to talk to one person. It's like, it's like dating and marriage. It's like, before you get married, you're going to talk to a lot of different people. You're going to date a lot of different people. It makes sense. And figure out where you want to, place your time and your bets and your effort. So I think, and then on top of that, the onboarding process, if you have an onboarding process that is half decent, where, you've set up some training, you've set up some meetings, you've gotten people comfortable, you do some check-ins, you've given them a roadmap to success. You've given them all the tools and the access to the tech, and let them know, what their day is going to look like, who they're going to be communicating with, all these things that matter and are so simple and obvious. You do that, you're like, you're basically like 100xing your possibility that the person is going to stick around. That's it. You know what I mean?
Shocking.
Look at these guys. Shocking. They've got processes. I was at another company. They just threw a laptop at me. I didn't even know what to do.
It's really that simple. And I think the cannabis industry is one of those industries where we have this perception of, yes, everything's going very fast and it's stressful and it's hard and there's so many things that make this industry incredibly hard. But the sense of pace of like, oh, we're going so fast that we can't do that.
That's a horrible excuse.
It's a horrible excuse because that not doing that is actually going to slow you down in the future, because all of a sudden you're going to hire someone and then you're going to have to rehire that person and rehire that person and rehire that person. And every time you rehire them, you're wasting time and you're wasting money and you're wasting brain power. And, had you just done it, it's like measure twice, cut once. It's the same principle here.
Yeah.
And, it's just like the idea of that, like speed is everything. It's like, yeah, but just slow down, because the people that slow down and do things properly are just the ones that are just going to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so many companies fail to realize that how crucial processes are in general, right? They feel that, SOPs were just burdens from regulatory bodies put upon us. Yeah, well, there is some care and control that go, that are woven into there. But at the same time, like I'm a Six Sigma guy, right? So understanding process, efficiency, they all save time in the long run. Yes, they are burdensome and a pain in the ass to think through. You will have to adjust them over time, right? That worked, that didn't work. But like you say, in the long haul, like you're going to have someone that was onboarded properly. They're happy. They understand the company now, right? And what they're supposed to do. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is when you do not have those processes in place, you leave that candidate or new hire wondering, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's a horrible experience.
And what's success and like what actually matters to the company, like all these little things are so important. And it's like, I do understand at the early stage of a company, it's like, when you're really scrappy, like, yeah, there's no process, but then you get to an inflection point and you're like, okay, we actually can't grow here if we don't are documenting things. If we're not like setting up checks and balances of like everyone's doing it this way, because now if you have 20 people all doing it a different way, that's chaos. If you have 2 people doing it a different way, that's fine. If you're getting the same result, that's okay. But if you have 20 people doing it all different way, it's madness.
Your bus is coming out painted 2 different colors. Like but I think that, you know, you're talking about being young and scrappy. That's your core team. Those are the ones that helped you build it. They understand, you know, you're calling them at midnight. They're not abiding by the Ontario rule of, what's it called?
There's
something after.
I believe it's called the "Don't fucking call me after 6
Don't
p.m.
fucking
rule.
call me. Yeah, Wes, we don't employ that principle within High Flyer Media or Legacies, just so you know. But I remember when this rolled out, right, you know, in tech companies especially, we see this. I would assume it's very similar in cannabis, but you've got releases going out at 2 a.m. Like, you got to be available. But my point is, okay, young startup type life, you know, your core team, they're going to be a little more forgiving. They get it. But as you start to mature, you need those bespoke or important roles filled. Those individuals are coming from places that they've been around processes. They understand what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I think that it's just, if you've got a bit of an HR team, if you have this, it doesn't take much, you know. I don't think it's not rocket science either. It's just making people feel comfortable, making people feel seen during the process, making them feel heard. I think that the companies too that are really good at hiring don't nickel and dime people as well.
Right.
You know, if they're looking for, you know, 95K, they don't offer them 85, you know, because, you know, I don't think people are, just because, you know, there's a lot of companies, I'm sure, that have done this, and I know some that have done this, where it's like, oh, we're awesome, so like we're going to offer them less money because we're awesome. Like, that's just not how things work in this day and age. You know, people aren't.
You know what's more awesome? Money.
People aren't taking a haircut just because like you have cool brands. That's not really like, you know, especially like someone working in operations or the back office or facility, like they don't care. That's not, they're there to do a job, and, you know, they're not like, they're not impressed by the coolness of a company or anything like that. So I really like when we deal with companies that, you know, we do a lot of pre-negotiation so that it's easy for companies when they make the offer. They don't have to like necessarily talk about money. Some of them do, and that's their prerogative. But, you know, we make it pretty simple for them. We're like, here's this person. This is the number they need. We've already, you know, pre-negotiated them on your behalf. And then, you know, it's great when companies respect that and it's a smooth process. And then other times, you know, you have companies that it just doesn't, you know, they're like, let's offer them 5K less than that. Let's just see what happens. And you're like, okay, you're already starting off the relationship on a weird,
you're giving me
foot.
like flashbacks and PTSD from when I was in real estate. It's $1 million listing. Let's offer him 300,000.
Yeah,
it's like, what the fuck? I'm not even going to submit that offer. Like, exactly. You have to, but but outside, because you offer more services to these companies than merely recruitment, right? Because they do struggle with onboarding processes. And do you handle HR related topic, subject at all? Like, hey, I'm struggling with this employee. I don't know how to deal with it.
So ad hoc, yes. Like, you know, if someone phones me and is like, hey, you know, this is happening, I'll give them my advice, but I'm not like, I don't have my, you know, HR certificate or anything like that.
You're not drawing pips up necessarily.
No, exactly. So that's not my forte. But in terms of like the sort of not just doing recruitment, the way I see it is like, we're just going a bit deeper than being like a transactional recruiter. Like I said before, I'm really trying to get to know the company's culture. You know, I'm advising them on their actual recruitment process as opposed to just providing them with candidates. I'm going in and being like, hey, what is your actual recruitment process? This is it's currently this is the way I would improve it. You know, and we're not even, that's not even like an added service. Like, I'm just doing that for companies because it's just helpful, and it's going to make my life easier when I deal with them. And then it's going to make, you know, their lives easier and things like that. So, and I've seen inside so many operations from a recruitment lens that gathered what works and what doesn't,
Right.
and what's important and how long things should take. And then on top of that, it's like, we do things like salary guides. We're working on putting together next year's
your salary guides. Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's making
yeah.
the most fucking money in this industry? That's what I want to know. Put you on the spot again. Are they the CEOs? Because they shouldn't be in a lot of cases.
It's the CEOs. It's always the CEOs.
Let's get out of
know.
the executive suite. What is the top paying role within the industry now?
Probably something in sales. Definitely.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would say. It's not like cannabis is this crazy industry anymore where there's crazy salaries. It's very like reasonable.
Have you ever gone back and compared your early days reports to what's going on now and seen the delta? Obviously, you have that as a metric and you put those in your reports. I've seen them. But go back to like 2018, maybe draw some. What the fuck? It almost looks like the Canadian stock index.
Yeah, I remember we worked a QA manager or something like that. Just a reasonable position that nowadays would get around like 100, maybe 110 at the most, and it was like 160K.
Wow!
And it was just like that's.
And was that because they wanted to fill it quickly? Like,
yeah, I think so. And they also think they just didn't know any better. I think there was a part of them that was just like
shot in the dark.
We just like, I think this is how much we should pay this person.
Yeah.
And then the issue was that because that happened, when the shift in salaries happened, the people who were at the 160 in that position, you'd phone them for another position. They're like, oh no, I'm not moving unless I'm getting 170. And you're like, you just won't be getting 170 moving forward.
Oh man. You just uncovered.
Move. And so it would create this like almost like blockage where like people wouldn't move out of their positions because they have these golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And there's still some companies that I'm sure we can guess which ones I'm talking about where they put themselves in a position where it's like they just can't. Those people will never leave because they're so well
grandfathered
paid.
Tenants in my building is what they are.
Exactly.
I've got rent control. Why am I moving? Never happening.
Exactly.
Well, and you just uncovered another area for me anyways, or one that I hadn't put a lot of thought into, is just another pain point of the industry. In the early days, these high salaries, but then, certain roles command a certain salary just in general, and then specific within a certain industry as well. Right. But I feel bad for some of these individuals because, maybe the company folded, right? We were talking earlier on the episode before you joined us that, 36%, at least that was 2023, Wes, 36% of companies that filed for CCAA were cannabis companies. Right. I would assume that number's higher. So these individuals, let's say they fold, they were at that 160 whatever role. And now, realistically, they're only ever going to see 110. That's a massive fucking haircut.
Oh yeah. It's such a crazy change in lifestyle too. Like it's a big haircut. It's a big, whoa, oh my gosh. Like,
suddenly I can't afford this mortgage is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of that for sure. Right. So it's kind of scary when you think about it in that sense. And like, I'm all for everybody making as much as they possibly can, but there's just some roles where you are limited. You're just not going to get, you're not going to get it past a certain number. And when you did get that number and then you go back to reality, it's kind of difficult to deal with that. And so it created like, that was such a, it's just like, some people just don't really understand, like, they were living in like a fantasy world in that company because of the state of the economy and the capital markets that existed then. But we're not in that era anymore.
We're back to reality, folks.
Things are, it's actually good though. Like it's
for the industry,
overall for the industry, it's a good thing. We're getting back to like solid ground, and there's more consolidation, and like we just had the motif and the organogram thing. And
what are your thoughts on that one? All right, because I've got one other question before we part, but I want to know your thoughts on that one because there's a lot going on here, right? Look at the EBITDA. What's reported, what's not, cash in hand versus stock. structure of the deal looks good,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, and Organigram's no slouch. I mean, they were a customer
No.
of Ample. I've been to the facility,
Yeah,
smart
they're
operators out
totally,
there.
for sure.
So, and Motif, again, like awesome company.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking companies that paved the way to what biological assets were valued at in the early days as well, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that's the only complexity here. I'm saying there's a multitude of complexities that would boost the price of a company on the market. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
What were your general thoughts when you saw that?
I thought it was a good play by Organigram.
Yeah.
I think that the market is I think we're going in the direction of there's going to be 5 big cannabis companies, and they're gonna eat up the sort of mid-market players that are actually kicking ass. Like, I mean, Motif was kicking ass, and that they weren't enormous, but they were kicking ass. And so I think we're going to see more of that happen. And then I think there's going to be some standout sort of smaller companies, like, Canara is obviously not a small company,
Canara.
but they're not, they're not the size of Organigram, but they're,
Right.
But they're not tiny, but they're kicking ass. And I think that we're just going to see more and more of this consolidation, which is, it's just inevitable. And I think it's actually good for the industry. I think it's good for, we're going to get to a place of profitability. Like, there's going to be a lot.
It will come, folks.
It's going to come, but it can't exist
coming.
when we have 900 companies.
That's right.
It's just,
yeah.
It's just
very
not
difficult.
It's very difficult for that to be the case in
It's
a
like the
country
gold
this
rush,
size.
right? It's like why they called it the green rush. I mean, picks and shovels, everyone was making the money there, right? And then they get to the mine and they're like, there's no fucking gold left. Like, there's no gold left. Everyone's already mined it all. What's going on?
Exactly.
So let me ask you though, based on all your metrics, all the key points of data that you collect over time, your experience, I won't even go, what's the future? But I do want to know, what does 2025 look like for us in this industry from your perspective?
I feel good about 2025, actually.
We always say that, Graydon. Every end of the year, we're like, I feel good about the next year. And then fucking day one, we get punched in the face.
Bring us some fucking doom and gloom right now.
No doom and gloom.
It's going to be terrible, guys. Buckle up.
Buckle up,
Hell
motherfuckers.
hath no fury. Yeah, guys, buckle up. Everyone's going under. Everyone's getting fired. No.
Just team up.
I don't know. I feel it's like, in my perspective, I feel okay, I'll put it this way. So the previous 2 years for us was the same. We basically did the same amount of work and the same revenue. This year, things started feeling like a little bit more exciting again, especially to the end of the year.
Okay.
We're busier than ever. And my lens is only from like the lens of hiring.
Which is a crucial lens, though.
Which is a big lens. And so companies are busy, and companies are being smarter with how they hire and more strategic. And like we were saying, putting in processes and being more thoughtful about who they bring on and when they bring that person on and how much they're spending. And I just feel like my overall sense of the industry is actually is more positive than ever, because people seem to be, the companies we're dealing with are taking things a lot more serious, and they're being a lot, like, I'm seeing less haphazard sort of fly by the seat of your pants approach. Things seem a little bit more methodical. And so I know that's anecdotal and that's not like a data driven answer, but that is what I'm seeing from where I'm sitting. And that makes me feel good about things, because there's a sense of maturity. There's a thoughtful approach to hiring that's coming and beginning to show face, and that's a really, really good sign for everyone. So that the fact that companies are taking things more serious, I think, makes me feel hopeful for where things are at. I think that it's cannabis. I can't predict anything. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know anyone who saw the Motif or Organigram thing coming. I'm sure there was some people that had predicted something like that, but I can't predict that. I'm sure there's going to be more consolidation. The thing I like about the Canadian cannabis industry is whoever was the winner this year is probably not the winner next year.
Right, right.
It's always a different company. It's like, like a couple years ago it was like Oxley, and then it was Decibel, and then
Right.
those companies are still doing well, but there's always different leaders kind of show face and rise up, which is really fun, I think, for the market. And I think that just more consolidation, and I think it's going to be a good year though. I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
All right. Well, you backed up. Go ahead, Wes.
Sorry, I guess my last question for you, and more for the audience as well, and who might be from some of those companies who have gone through CCAA and stuff like that, is what are your big roles? What are the roles that you're hiring for right now that maybe our audience can reach out to you about if they're interested? And is there anything? What's the big stuff you're hiring for right now?
We're always hiring. There's a lot of roles that we're just always hiring for. We're always hiring for QAPs. We're always hiring for some level of marketing, whether that's trade marketing managers or brand managers. Companies are always hiring for territory sales managers. I would say, what else do we have right now? Companies are always looking for, operations people. One role I'm noticing more uptick in is roles around data. Companies are really starting to take their data more serious. Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of companies coming to us and asking for, sales data analysts and demand planners and things like that. So, hit us up. www.whiteashgroup.com. We're easy to reach.
Yeah, I'll put a link to your job board down in the description.
Perfect.
Anything for Wes and I?
Yeah.
You guys are fine. Look at you in the red curtain and your fancy screens.
With the red curtains. Red curtains don't pay the mortgage, Graydon.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Or maybe they do. Actually, they do. I'm going to continue to manifest that into our lives. Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Pay those bills.
Yeah, what you can't see in that shot is the cupboard behind with just a box full of saltine crackers.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all it is.
Well, like dinner time. Yeah. Listen, man, we love your perspective. We'll keep you on that high note that 2025 is going to be where it needs to be. I'm feeling it as well. I mean, there's those data points. I think we're going to see some big upsets though as well. I think next year. And we need to be realistic about that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's going to happen for sure. There's going to be some big upsets, but
it always happens, right?
I'm always a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, buddy, we appreciate you joining us on Legacies. Continued success, and we'll have to hook up again when we're in the TO area.
100%. Let's do it, guys.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Alex Gauthier and Dave Beau of Origine Nature. Did I say that correctly, gentlemen?
Absolutely. Bonjour, mon ami.
Bonjour, comment ça va?
Ça va bien, ça va bien.
That's where we draw the line.
Come on, step too. That's the only other one.
Yeah, I still remember the comme ci, comme ça. The teacher always used to ask me, how are you? Comme ci, comme ça. Gents, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a while in the making, but two of my favorite people in the industry. We go way back, Dave. Wait, hold on. Way back.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. We love Origine Nature. We love what you guys are doing. You guys are some of the humblest people in this fucking industry, and we just love you for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys just got back from... Wait, before we go too far, just because we're bordering on the Christmas season here, right? We asked, we had Graydon Welbourn on earlier. We asked him, what are your top 3 Christmas movies? They can be Hanukkah movies too, I guess. What are your top 3?
Die Hard is number 1.
Okay, there we go. There we go. See?
Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3.
No, you gotta put Home Alone in there. Home Alone as well. I mean, come on.
Home Alone. I forgot Home Alone when I was going through my list. Yeah. All right. Once and for all, it is settled. Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Yes, sir.
Give credit where credit is due.
That's
Bruce
right.
Willis,
There you go.
we got it, Christmas.
Gents, obviously you operate within the province of Quebec, and that has its own challenges, and we'll discuss some of that as well. But where the hell are you guys right now? You're out in the middle of nowhere, yeah?
Wow, nowhere. No, we're actually in the heart of the Laurentide, if you trust our city's motto. So we're right between Saint-Sauveur and Mont-Tremblant, which are basically 2 of the biggest ski resorts in Quebec. Saint-Agathe is an up-and-coming town, and actually the reason why we're here is because Saint-Agathe demonstrated that they were willing to be some top-tier partners of the cannabis industry. So compared to other city where they've went to propose to show the project. Well, actually, I think he tells
Let's go back to 2016.
Let's
So
do that. Let's go way back.
I went to 35 different cities, municipalities, villages in the province of Quebec because it was very important for me to be a Quebec producer. And out of the 35 different municipalities and whatnot, Saint Agathe welcomed us with open arms. Showed up to that meeting. They already had sites in mind. They knew where we were going.
Wow.
They've been an amazing partner. I always tell people, anybody I've consulted with over the years, if you're going to start a cannabis project on any level, start with the municipality. Make sure you have a solid partner there. Make sure they want you there.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do with all the stigma around cannabis is enter a jurisdiction and already have people pushing back against you. So
what was the challenge then with, 35 gripes? Like what were the reasoning?
2016 pre-legalization, no one knew what was going to happen. No one knew what to expect. So the laws weren't even really, they weren't ascended yet. Right. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And then it came down to other things too, like, step one is when I pick a site, step one is the city, but then step two is, do they have the electrical infrastructure? I don't believe, and sorry to all those out there who do it, I'm not a big believer of growing cannabis off a well. That comes with a whole slew of issues that, I'd much rather work with a city water that's, even the city water isn't really consistent depending on which city you're in, but it's more consistent than what you're going to get from a well. The city's never really going to run dry. So, there's all that to take into consideration after the fact too. So,
yeah. Well, even processing, right? I think, Alex, you had posted a video about all the process the water goes through for treatment and everything. So, in my days of MMAR growing, it was RO it, start with neutral and go from there, right? But you guys go a step further. We'll get to that. But what were, Dave, so 2016, obviously we went through MMAR, MMPR, ACMPR, Cannabis Act, Cannabis 2.0, right? What were you doing at that point? Like before the 2016 marker of visiting all these municipalities and going, hey, cannabis is coming, guys. It's coming.
I was selling food for a living. I was a restaurateur since I'm 43 today for the last 22 years. I still am. I still have a St. Hubert's franchise here in Montreal, Quebec. But, I was making food in different establishments and selling that. Much different gross margins in the restaurant industry than the cannabis industry, just for those who are wondering. And then got really attracted to the cannabis industry for my personal reasons, and then really started digging in and trying to figure out how we were going to make Quebec a renowned cultivation capital of the world, right? So
yeah, that's awesome. And I know the one thing that has kind of stood out as we've worked with various brands and having them on the podcast is Montreal really is supportive of our own. Right. Like it's, if you've got your various products, your SKUs, if you've got them in Quebec, they will support you fully. Right. You were just sharing, you're just at MJ BizCon. We'll get to that too, because I'm sure that there's some stories, that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but there's probably some you can share. But you had taken a couple or they had at least joined you from the SQDC. What was that? What's that relationship? How important is that relationship with the SQDC to ensure that your products are supported, properly distributed, et cetera?
Yeah, pardon me. There's nothing more important than that relationship for our company. And there's no, just to be clear, that organization is run extremely well from Suzanne Bergeron all the way down. And, the opportunity to, I actually ran into both the SQDC and Cannabis New Brunswick, Cannabis NB at Planet 13. It was just amazing to see these provincial regulators from Canada entering the market and go into a place like Planet 13, which I consider the number one dispensary in the world from a client experience, from a customer experience. That whole facility is just phenomenal. And to see the hamsters rolling and the people getting ideas and seeing what they can do. So was very cool to live that experience.
Yeah, it seems that Quebec is getting a little more progressive. But Alex, first, when were you at inception of Origine, or when did you join the team?
So I joined in 2020 when the licensing happened.
Okay.
I was actually in the industry with Aurora Cannabis and Tidal Health Solution. But just quickly to touch on the SQDC in Montreal, just one thing that I think a lot of people know is Quebecers are their own beast, right? So they have a strong cultural identity. Dave himself in restoration, right? If you open the same chain in Toronto or in Montreal, it's not at all the same customers. Quebecers are proud people. We are Quebecers. Most of our team was born in Quebec. We like that identity. And Quebecers do show a lot of love for their brands. They have a lot more customer loyalty. And the SQDC basically enables also that loyalty from the Quebecers. So it's a great place to be. Yeah. We're very, very thankful for every single customers and their loyalty, and it means a lot. Establishing brand recognition in the industry has been something people have been fighting for since the inception. Yeah. We think we managed to have some recognition, not necessarily a lot, right? At the end of the day, we're always just one bad lot away from ruining any brand, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's why we chose Quebec. It's part of who we are, and the Quebecer shows love to other Quebecer. It's important for us to encourage other Quebecers, and that's why we settled here.
Yeah, I love that, and I think I've argued this off before because we know BC has its roots in cannabis, and a lot talk about BC Bud, and that was a kind of world stage thing for a while. And I've even challenged individuals on the podcast before. We're like, everyone supports BC Bud. I'm like, one other thing. Let's not forget about Quebec, because from what I've seen, and I look at a lot of things, right? The success of the company, how they're run, the leadership, analytics, distribution, right? Which is tough to study Quebec when it comes to analytics in some cases. But you can tell that Quebec supports their own, very proud people, and you should be. The products are crazy, like crazy good. And I'll hang on one point there for a second that you made, as you said, one bad lot. You guys get this. More companies need to understand this when it comes to their cannabis products, which is, it's not a fuck it, ship it, especially when it comes to Origine, right? Not even close. You guys scrutinize every single lot, every batch when it's being grown. And I'm not saying other companies don't, but there are some companies in the industry that, if not for their stockpiles of cash, not everyone has that these days either, but they just ship it because they've got bills to pay. And what happens is your end customer or consumer, they get that product. You don't have a lot of chances with these consumers these days. Right? I want to understand that from your perspective. And when you're thinking about those products and your product development, because Alex, you've got some fucking crazy genetics and great product, man. I've got some here. There's very few products that make it to a C vault for me. And you guys were, you blessed us with, swag and hats, and I could up from my old one, but there's only two that are currently in C vaults for me that are very special. One is the Golden Goth. Golden. Do you call it Golden Goth?
Goat.
You do call it Goat, okay. Yeah, and the other one is it on the market? Can I even mention it?
No, it's not on the market yet.
Not on the market. So scratch that from the record, Wes. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, when I get good products, they're the ones that they're not an everyday smoke for me necessarily. It's the quality that I look for. And Alex, I mean, you guys, Dave, but I'm giving Alex a lot of credit here because we know what he does.
It's a team effort, yeah.
It's a team effort.
And I'll add one other layer of that. So we had it was a launch event we were at. I try to keep clear-headed, and I'm like going to, I think I was emceeing. I forget what it was. And I'm like, I'm outside, and Tanner's hanging around. You and Tanner are obviously close. And you're like, hey, you want to try this? And I'm like, no. And I turn around, I go, okay, I will. And I forgot half the shit I was going to say on stage, right?
That was the Astro Boys event.
Oh, the Astro Boys launch event, right? That's Anyways, so help us understand how important that is, because for me, from my perspective, you have one shot with a curious customer these days, right? You go into, a dispensary in Ontario is one thing, up to 700 SKUs. In Quebec, I think it's around 300 to 400 you'll see on occasion.
Right now, I think it's 408.
Okay, so 408. I mean, still a lot of choice, right? And that's why I say these consumers, like one shot. If you ruin that shot, what happens? Like, you guys, tell me the methodology, the thought process.
There's something that Alex taught me along the road, which I'll always remember.
Okay.
And it's that there's no bad cannabis. There's only badly priced cannabis. And that's an important statement, right?
It is true.
You know, do we grow out a spec lot? Absolutely. Any grower who's we're pumping out just over 8.5 million grams a year. You know, most of the big boys are doing what, 20, 30, 80, like million grams of cannabis a year. No one's growing 80 million grams of cannabis and not out of spec lots here and there. It's learning, okay, what's my business strategy going to be with those lots? And how do I ensure like the customers will pay for a lot that's out of spec, but they expect to pay a price associated to that lot.
Right.
And it becomes very difficult in the cannabis industry because it's not like we can just discount pricing or offer some sort of deal, or we don't have access to those types of markets, right? If Tommy Hilfiger makes a sweater and they mess up the stitching, they send it to their outlet and they sell it at $10 instead of $100, right? But there's still going to be a buyer for it. They're not throwing that in the garbage. I mean, the last thing our planet needs these days is, what are you going to do? Destroy 200 kilos of cannabis because you had a little issue with it?
Yeah.
What's the issue? What's the resolution? And then once the product is now ready to go, what's the SKU for it? And if you know, we definitely, as we're developing our SKUs here in Quebec, we put those as only our premier product goes to Quebec. Again, can we make a mistake? Absolutely. But then it's how do you know, quite frankly, we had a product in the market called that Tash Tuk, which was a run at a hash.
Okay.
And it did not, I mean, for a multitude of reasons, it did not meet our standards. It did not meet our customer standards. We owned it. You know, we pulled it off the shelves and we discontinued that product. We went back to the drawing board and we just resubmitted Tash Tuk version 2.0.
Nice.
and I'm looking forward to, I think we got it right this time, right? We've developed 35 SKUs in 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not a tremendous amount again, but for a company our size, that's
impressive.
It's what we think is the right number, right? Like somebody tells me they did 120 SKUs. It's like, okay.
I don't look at that and go, that's reason to celebrate though, especially when you're not seeing the sell through. From our side, we see it because again, we pay a lot of attention to the data. It helps us understand the pulse of the industry and what's happening. But again, another crucial statement and understanding is you pulled that product because it wasn't up to your standard. I've seen time and time again where whether it's Reddit subs, whatever it might be, the product is getting bashed and they just continue to sell, not realizing it's not just that SKU that the customers are no longer going to purchase. It's your brand that they're no longer going to purchase, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think in Quebec, so I'm a big believer that there's look at all the markets. And again, some of the big boys don't like it when I say that, but I don't believe that in a 5-year-old industry, how you can be properly and fully established in 12, 13 different jurisdictions and be able to be laser focused on each one. If you're able to, bravo and kudos to you. Because most businesses, you know, Labatt definitely didn't start that way. You know, I can tell you that. Like, you know, that's not the natural, you know, it's not how business works. Usually you focus in on a or a couple jurisdictions. You know, we tried it. We tried to do Quebec and BC because in our opinion, those are the legacy and the jurisdictions that know cannabis the best in Canada. And I'm not hating on anyone else. It's just Quebec, BC, like you say, BC Bud has been world renowned forever.
Yeah.
And like it or not, Quebec has always been kind of like the stepbrother in the corner, but I think equally as important to the cannabis industry over the last 30, 40 years. So, you know, for us, we tried to really focus in on those two markets. And the reality was that was a lot for us to handle. So I can only imagine 10, 11, 12, 13 markets. It's like, you know, it's very difficult. So we choose to, from a retail aspect, we only focus in on Quebec. And that allows us to have that connection with the consumer a little more, pay more attention. Like, we're not paying attention to consumers in 13 different markets. We're paying attention to consumers in one market, right?
And they're not all the same.
Absolutely.
Everyone likes to broad stroke brush, cannabis consumers are the same. No, they're not. Not even close, right? I mean, in Ontario, we'll eat our young. We just don't give a shit, right? There isn't necessarily a lot of brand loyalty in some cases. But also, I think in Ontario, we don't do the greatest job for those producer processors to really pump that it's Ontario. I mean, you go fruits and veggies, Ontario grown, right? But in cannabis,
wine?
wine,
Right?
great point. But BC, you do, and especially, Quebec and Montreal style hash, right, is very prominent throughout Canada for those that do it properly. But yeah, you brought up a great.
Quebec hash has always been a dominant hash in the industry, right?
Oh yeah, those are way back days.
One thing that Alex always says too, which I really appreciate, is that way before the legal industry, there was a cannabis industry, right? Like Legacy Podcast, right? We hit on the name, So the reality is, Quebec's been a dominant factor of hash for 50 years. I don't know.
Everything
before I was born, anyways. You have to respect that knowledge, that industry from its roots, right?
So how do you position yourselves then? Because I agree with you. I think that there's a lot, and we saw this in the early days, right? Some of the giants that came in, we're going to be in every province and we're going to export. We're going to do everything we can to dominate this market. And they fell on their face quick. But a lot of the expansion that's happened when you talk Labatt, it's done by way of acquisition in a lot of cases, right? Where they've established a market, they see a performer, it's a brand potentially, they're doing well in another market. Rather than just try to establish themselves, they just buy that market, right? Yep. Which I think we're starting to see a little bit more of now through M&A activity. But for yourselves, are you comfortable? I always ask, where's enough?
Who's the big one? Organigram just purchased
Motif,
Motif. Yeah. I mean, I'd say that's a pretty historical M&A transaction we're going to see in the industry in the years to come.
Yeah.
And it's been a moment since we've seen that sort of
anything sort of that caliber,
between two companies of that size. It's
too many people got burned also, right? There was a lot of ridiculous value in the M&As at first, but I think that a lot of finance sheets aren't up to date, aren't done properly, they're not audited well, people get a lot of bad surprises. So we saw a slowdown of that because, as I say, people got burned. But the reality of it is, with the maturation of a market, the industry is going to start behaving more like the other well-established industry, just like alcohol, right? In the sense that Labatt does that because at some point, once everybody's established, let's say you take agriculture. If you want to grow tomatoes, you can go literally on the government website. It will tell you exactly how to grow tomatoes, how much kilos you're supposed to get by square meter. And if you don't get that, you're not profitable. That's how much it's owned in, right? To the fucking kilo, right? So once you're established and regulated to that point where anybody can go get that cheat sheet and basically know exactly what they're getting into and calculate it to the square meter close, well, you can more easily acquire business because we're all running with the same way of running things. Right now, everybody's doing things differently. A lot of the rules are up for interpretation. Just recently, I went to an LP that was still storing destruction in their secure storage because there was a misunderstanding at the QA level, right? Because destruction should not be stored in a secure storage.
So I come from compliance. I'm thinking, whoa, no.
Exactly, right? So that's what I mean. There's so much that's still up to be standardized, and that's what we strive for. Standardization comes with normalization. People want to talk about terpene this and education that. Guys, we just need to normalize. As Dave said, the dream is to be able to go to a barbecue with your friends, and when you pull out a joint, nobody asks you to go further because you're a bad example when everybody's doing shots and drinking beer, right? So once we normalize, with normalization can come more research and more establishment of what the product really is and how it should be produced and distributed.
Yeah, that's smart, man. Wes and I were talking about this the other day. So obviously, being a media company, we're into promotion as much as we can, legally, in compliance, right? But part of what I came to, the conclusion of was by all these heavy burden regulations, and I'm not talking excise, we could go on about all the different facets and the challenges, but specifically within the world of advertising, promotion, and marketing. When you applied for your license, Dave, there was, you needed a business plan A. And inside a business plan A, there's typically a marketing plan, at least in my world of business, right? And it's almost a slap in the face for them to go, provide us your marketing plan. And then all these years later, we're still looking at this going, but I can't do much at all. To me, the government, in this case, Health Canada and the provincial regulators, they're the ones that continue that stigmatization, that lack of normalization, because you can't, dispensaries are still shielded. Limits on potencies, where we talk about it, how we talk about it, when we talk about it is all governed. And does that not just continue to allow the stigmatization of the industry itself?
So absolutely. But I think you also have to, the best example of this, I love it. And I don't want to get too political or anything, but
you can get as political as you want on this show, buddy.
We're gonna go to COVID just for a moment.
Yep.
I know it's like resurfaced and all this, whatever, and I don't want to go all there. But being a Quebecer during COVID, when you say the words COVID, for me, that means what the number I hear is 400 days of confinement, because it was, as a Quebec resident, for 400 days. We had some sort of lockdown curfew. There was times when you couldn't even leave your house. My daughter got positive. We were 28 days in my house. We couldn't leave. Like, it was crazy, compared to Alberta. They didn't, their number is 0. My understanding is not one day. I can't say I fact checked that, but my understanding is Alberta didn't have 1 day of lockdown the way we lived it here in Quebec.
Wow.
Now go to cannabis for a sec. Mm-hmm. In Quebec, you got to be 21 years old, 30, and just to be clear, often the SQDC gets hit for this. SQDC has nothing to do with those regulations. In my opinion, and this is David Bowe speaking, the SQDC would only be happy to see regulations in the province of Quebec be more streamlined with the same regulations we see in the other provinces again. Now, with that said, you look at Alberta and they're doing cannabis events, cannabis forward thinking. You go to a conference in Alberta and the interactions you can have with the LPs and everything else is, so there's really a correlation to how you, how you do one thing, you do everything. Yeah. And here in Quebec, we got a certain mindset, which is very protective. The province of Quebec likes to protect the people of Quebec. Sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it's for the bad. And then you have other provinces that are much more gung-ho and ready to go. The one thing I would say that for me, you got to give them love for it. The one place I go in Canada is British Columbia. And in my opinion, cannabis is just totally, there's no issue. I'll never forget, about a year ago, we were out there for the Canada Golf. And I was smoking a joint on the sidewalk, and a mom was going by with their baby in a stroller. Just naturally, I'm kind of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And like, I kind of move away, and like, she stops. She's like, no, you're good. She saw me trying to give her space, and she's like, no, you're good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, give me a hit.
Kept going, like, it just very, and and then just real quickly, take that back for a moment. Cannabis costs the government $1.2 billion, $1.2 billion of tax, essentially, like the tax on the government, like on the population. Whereas, and if you normalize that over the consumers between alcohol and cannabis, it's maybe like 7 billion.
Right.
Alcohol was $19.8 billion it cost the government, the population of Canada last year in issues related to it. Anywhere from spousal abuse caused by alcohol all the way to any sort of medical issues. 19.8 versus 7 billion. Jeez. We absolutely, as a population, want people to drink less and smoke more or consume more cannabis. Yeah. And you're going to say, oh, well, combustion. Well, drinking copious amounts of alcohol isn't good for the liver.
Let's see your livers, right? People.
So,
I think they're great points. And that's where, hopefully these conversations, right? The ones that are at events and, bringing SQDC into Planet 13 and going, look what this is different. It's all in an effort to say, listen, we can normalize this. It should be normalized, but you need to open up a little bit. I want to come back, Alex. What was the draw to Origine for you when you had joined in 2020? He's a hard guy not to love, isn't he?
So just a lot of love, right? So I joined the team that we basically, so I think in Quebec, there's a very, very strong cannabis industry from the legacy days. Everybody knows everybody. There's, probably all the best guys in Quebec that you can think of. They all have one guy behind them, and that's Steve Aboud or Rich and Mitch Clement from Montreal Cannabis, right? Those three guys pretty much touch every single grower out here, and we're very lucky to call them mentors. By the way, just to circle back at one of those things with bad lots, do you know what's the difference between a good grower and a legendary grower?
Well, I'll let you answer. I have opinions, but I'm not sure.
One was smart enough to put the bad lot in somebody else's name. Right?
Yeah. That's so true.
And so because of that, everybody knows everyone. When I started Aurora Cannabis and I went on to Tidal Health Solution in New Brunswick, I was tied with the biofloral crew as well as Canna. And they introduced me to Dave and everybody else. And right away, it was a fit.
We met at the Biofloral. I think it was the 20th year anniversary party. So I was with the owner there, threw a big party in like a church downtown Montreal. Kind of people from all around the industry were there. It was a really great event.
Very
and it was
cool.
the first, I remember because we were like texting back and forth, kind of talking. And then that was the first day we met, went outside, smoked a joint together, got to know more. And here we are today, right? It was, and that's the industry in Quebec for the whole. I mean, I'm obviously one of the founders of the Quebec Cannabis Association, and we can all be competitors, but we can all still be working together.
Right.
And for the record, I don't look at that as being the lines being drawn for Quebec. I see it as Canada.
Yes.
We have an opportunity. We have a responsibility to own this industry, to own this market.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to work together. It's not about working against each other. It's about working together.
Yeah.
And how does cannabis remain the number one cannabis place in the world? There's a lot of, this is good for the country on so many levels.
Yes.
And we just need to keep that in place.
Yeah.
And just to pull it way back to what you asked earlier about marketing, one day the United States of America will federally legalize cannabis. It might be in 5, might be in 25 years, but one day that will happen. And when that happens, we're going to start to see business go both sides of the border. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, no one markets, no one brands the way the Americans do.
That's right.
So, am I scared of it? No. But I really hope that the playing fields are a lot more level when that happens, because I'm no Jake Paul. If I go against Mike Tyson, I will lose for sure, right? So, and Mike Tyson is a great brand, just like Tommy Chong has a great brand. Like these are you go into a store in the States and buy Tyson Bites and it's little ears, edible ears. Like I can't compete against that in Canada right now. It's not happening, right?
Yeah. Well, we've said this. We've had plenty of guests say this as well, where if we don't get our proverbial shit together before that happens, we may lose the world stage. We still have the opportunity to dominate the stage, right? But if we don't see reform in certain areas, I'm not saying every area, but certain areas, when that happens, right? We don't need to worry about Germany and Colombia and all these other jurisdictions right now. What we need to be worried about is when, because it's not if, when it is federally legalized in the US, they will eat our lunch if we're not careful, right? They will dominate that stage. It'll be hard enough for us even with reform, right? Relaxation of certain regulations, excise taxes, all these certain things happening. But that will level the playing field at that point. But if we're still sitting where we are now, we might as well. I don't know.
And it's the 100%. And even just another to roll off that a little bit. The other part that's important is, we have so many knowledgeable cannabis people from Canada. We have some of the best people in the world when it comes to cannabis. Mm-hmm. As other world markets open, there's a lot of capital in those markets. And if our industry isn't profitable enough to retain that intellectual property here, then we're sharing that with other countries, and that's going to hurt us. I think as much as I'm pro cannabis, above all else, I'm pro Canadian cannabis, right?
Yeah.
So we need to have solid businesses so that we can be able to ensure to keep our IP here. The way, and when I say IP, I really mean people, right? People don't always put that all together, but we have Alex mentioned Steve Aboud. He's a great example. He's all over the world doing stuff, and good for him. But if the Canadian market was strong enough to give him the same financial opportunities, I believe he would be here more, and maybe not. Maybe if not him, someone else. You know,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Organigram and he left, right? Organigram's working well now.
Well, and I've seen that across, since early 2017. The opportunities usually drew the IP or the intellectual individuals that were working within it, right? We call it brain drain, right? As you've got these other regions forming up and there's opportunities, but moving into 2020, 21, this is where I really started to see it, right? People going, man, I can't make my X dollars here. I don't have these opportunities. I'm frustrated. And you've got these other regions that are early days where Canada's at going, hey, come over here, right? Blue skies, we'll pay you what you want. You can't blame them. So it's almost that contextually we forced them out. They had no other choice.
All industries go boom, bust, echo. I think we're in that echo stage now, right? We're climbing the ladder. Where CCX has stated for the last couple of months the prices on cannabis continue to rise, and we feel it too. We feel the vaults are getting that. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. We're finishing the outdoor season. It's so funny, right? We talk about cannabis. Cannabis prices, even in the legacy markets, followed this.
Oh yeah,
these up and down.
Come November, man, you weren't paying as much. There's a lot of product in the market.
February, all of a sudden prices went up.
That's right.
I'm pretty excited because I think spring 2025 and summer 2025, we're gonna see. We've seldomly seen the demand outweigh the supply. So much.
Yeah. Where is that demand right now being generated, and how is Origine matching or seeing that demand? Because we know that not all companies are like Origine Nature, right? They're not all producing, putting their SKUs out in the market. Some are brands only. And I'm not saying brands being a brand only is easy. It's not. But they're sourcing and procuring that product to put in there. And from what we've been seeing and hearing is it's getting really tough. If you had a premium brand, and in typical cases, you don't have mass distribution, but if you have a premium brand that requires a premium product or premium flower in there, whether it's a 7 or a 28 or it's a pre-roll, it's getting harder. And the command on pricing is now going up. Where does Origine fit into that model?
Well, let's start by saying the prices in Canada and Quebec are far too low for cannabis. Okay. And I'm saying that as a cannabis consumer.
Yeah.
Talking about Planet 13, and I get that it's a tourist trap and you're getting people from all over the world and blah, blah, blah. But for a product that is inferior to ours, in my opinion, my humble opinion, $440 American for 28 grams. Now that's too far the other way.
I was going to say, my God.
Like 600 Canadian dollars for an ounce of weed. Like, come on, shake your head.
Yeah, but when you see companies saying, we've got value ounces for $100, I'm like, I wouldn't have fucking bought that.
Come on, we have an ounce in market at $115 consumer. Is the consumer price?
Wow.
And remember, $115, you got to take off $28 right off the top just in excise, right? So after that, when you start throwing everyone's margins, like we're lucky to break even with that.
Yeah.
Now that's you have to look at your list, your offerings too as a palette.
Sure.
But and that's. Why do we have that product? Above all else is in our mission to help SQDC combat the black market. What SQDC was seeing was because they didn't have those, call it filler ounces.
Yeah.
People weren't going to their store. People were continuing to go to their local drug dealer to get those cheap ounces.
Right.
And most people don't want to go to two different shopping experiences for cannabis. So by offering that cheap ounce, they've been able to secure some more, like probably 5-10% of the black market, transitioning into the legal market, right? Which is what we all want.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, but even like a 3.5 at $25, $30, I mean, for me, that should be $45.
Right.
Cigarettes is $22. Like,
right.
If 25 cigarettes cost me $22, then how does 9 joints or 8 joints cost me $25?
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. And for yourselves, are you looking at that spectrum so that you have your, call it value to a premium? And what is the importance of that? Like I've looked at it before. take Nico and Canera, what they're doing. They've got mass SKUs, right? They're just everywhere with a ton of SKUs. And I'm like, holy shit, bud, how do you keep up with that? Like, that is a lot.
They're pumping out, and I have mad respect for Canera and Nico, by the way, just so you know, they're crushing it too. And
they're doing well.
But, having, again, I go back to, I don't think you serve, I think they have some, and not throwing any shade, but I think they have some really great advance in IP, like on anything that's like rosin, resin, pre-roll. They're so far ahead of the game, and they're built for that. That if I'm them, I'm honing in on that. I'm focusing only on that. I'm trying to capture that market, and I'm studying Canada. Where are my 4 or 5 best margin provinces? And I'm bringing that expertise to those 5 markets. And and as a company, I'm going to perform better, I believe, right? You're better to do a little less, do it a little better, and increase your margin. And in the long run, I think it's a great solution. So,
how do you introduce this? This is over to you, Alex, really, because I mean, again, you've got like a mad scientist with some of your cultivars, right? But how do you introduce that? What is the process internally for Origine to look at this and go, okay, we need to introduce a new cultivar. Maybe the consumers are starting to get bored, or who knows the mindset of the consumer in some cases, right? And I'm always thinking back to my legacy days, going, what do you got now? I'm like, the same fucking thing I've been growing for fucking 2 years, guy. Like, they're not changing it, right? But in this market, because of that, selection and choice, where does that process start? Is it a business decision? Is it, I just like to mess around with cultivars and try to get the best phenos I can and grow them out? What does that decision making look like?
So the decision is actually quite complex. So it's first start with basically the sales analysis, right? So one of the things that we love with Quebec and the SQDC is, for me, we get actual sales data. Okay. In the sense that every single other province is skewed because there's a lot of pay to play.
Right.
There's a lot of pressure pushing product. We're putting a lot of power into bud tenders, but the reality of it is 30% of sales are first-time sales and 70% are repeat sales. And no matter how a bud tender push, if he recommends you garbage the first time, you're not going to follow the recommendation the second time, right? So the only true demonstration of success in repeat purchase is the actual product in the bag, in my opinion, versus the price. Price is extremely important. Your product can be amazing at $25. It could be complete garbage at $35. Yeah. Right. So we at the SQDC, what's great is because they're very limited in what people can say to some extent, what makes a product a success is the actual quality and then how people speak of it by word of mouth. And from there, we can actually start seeing natural trends that aren't skewed by company tries to buy their way in. We're actually starting to understand truly the Quebec consumer and the Quebec market. Now, we don't believe in rotating pheno and having a lot of pheno. We like owning in on a couple genetic and growing them forever almost, right? Sage and Sour has been going for over 5 years, still the best-selling sativa. It's all about consistency. Right. So once we establish a Quebec market, we do have a sommelier program. The sommelier program is also the same program that's going to decide if our batch are released or not. So every single product at Origine is tested for consistency. It's not a foolproof program yet, but we are trying to. That program, by the way, was modeled after 2 people that we see a little bit as a big brother, but would be Rubicon. Rubicon has tremendous expertise in their sommelier program. It's led by Mickey. I'm sure you know Mickey. He's
great. Graydon was talking about him earlier,
team. And Jack Daniels. To this day, every single barrel of Jack Daniel is tested by a human sommelier to ensure its quality standard. So if Jack Daniels still relies on a human, like a lot of the alcohol industry does, right? Like a lot of the wine that is the most popular is a mix of a couple different wines. And every year you have a guy going and tasting around the bulk batches and telling exactly, this year we're going to take 30% of that one, 40% of that one, and 30 of this one, right? And it changes every year, but it's always the same taste. Why? Because that human component to tasting is so important. So once we have our sommelier locked down and we understand where we're going, we try to introduce one genetic per year that we feel has a lot of potential. This year was Golden Goat. We got very lucky with that one. It's really a banger. But we're going to...
Oh, I just not... I just wait a second. Alex worked very hard to develop that genetic, and you know, a shout out to him. So you know, it's not
Thank you.
that we are lucky for sure. Any banger genetic takes some luck, but it took a lot of hard work on Alex's part too to find it, and he did a great job of that.
Yeah, I can attest.
I smoke it all the time. I love it. You know, my wife, who's not a big smoker, smokes it with me a little bit now and then, and she's like, man, every time she loves it. You know, you just you know when something's good or not because you see other people's experience with it,
right?
And that helps you, right? But a lot of hard work.
And that's exactly how we decide if we're going to grow something. We basically have R&D trials. We basically have the dried flower. We're going to do a lot of organoleptic review. And it's really based like in the good old day. Here's a bag. You don't know what it is. What do you want to smoke again? This one's perfect. Is it generalized across everybody? I think we have a winner, guys. Right? It's same thing. When you saw me bring the Golden Goat at all the conferences. I was distributing, and every time I would come to a conference, everybody was talking about it. Like we know we had a banger. So that's the thing. We take ego out of the equation. We don't pretend to know what people want and people like. We respect the cannabis industry, and that's why we actually try with organoleptic. We don't need to market at that point because the product speaks for itself. If you put the right product at the right price, people are bound to buy it as something new they want to try. And then when they open that bag in the living room with their friend and everybody's like, what is that? What is it? Smelly that? And that's where consistency was so important and where so many people failed, because there was a lot of great lots from a lot of producers out there. But the second that their friends open their bag, they're like, oh shit, I want to buy it. And then they go to the store, they buy the same product, and it's completely different what they have in the bag. And that's where there was no consistency. And with no consistency, you can't establish a habit. So what we did with the Sage and what we tried to do also with Passepartout, which is our Medellin and now Golden Goat, is that every week when people go buy their cannabis, if it's 3.5, they're going to buy 3.5 us, which is stable, consistent. They know they're going to like it. And then something else they're going to try. So we're the same value no matter what happens. And that's how people often shop also for their wine. They're always going to have the wine they like and try 1 or 2 new bottles.
Yeah.
So my wife drinks J-Lore and I drink Coors Light, right? Those are just the brands that we know and we trust.
Yeah.
So, you know, we both drink Grey Goose together. So
there you go.
Like we know which brands we like and what we're drinking for what occasion. And you never have a bad experience with any of those products, right? Like you know what that experience is time in, time out.
Well, how hard is it to maintain that consistency from lot to lot? Right, because we've seen. I mean, I've struggled with it. Right, in those days, it was like, what the hell happened?
You know,
I did everything the same.
When we're growing plants, and I think that the one thing I respect more 5 years into the industry at this point is anybody who's working with a living, whether it be whether it be you're raising cows or pigs or chickens, or you're growing any sort of like you're dealing with a living thing, right?
Yes,
like, prior to this, I'm in the restaurant industry, and everything's dead at that point, or we're killing it. It doesn't matter, right? Like,
but I mean, you're seeing that firsthand in your fruits and veggies. Going, oh, I sourced this from that place. It was the same place, but this one tastes like shit compared to the last time I got it.
Absolutely, right. So there's a lot of convertible knowledge from that background, but for sure, the biggest challenge for me is what you were saying, like that in lot to lot to lot. We've grown Sage and Sour Diesel over 150 times, maybe close to 200 at this time.
Wow.
We've produced 20 million grams of it, 16 million grams of it in the last 5 years, right? Like we know that product. We're still honing it in. We're still getting better. We're still, as much with like new technology, whether it be LED lights, whether it be other R&D things that we're trying to stay at the forefront of technology. Mm-hmm. Or it's also just what the plant likes, right? Like it's living, right? You gotta, I always laugh, like I always make jokes, maybe we should sing to the plants, right? Like
I used to play music every day. It came on a timer.
It feels like you don't know, like we try to use science. It's funny because, I'm from a school, Mitch and Rich Clement are two of the best growers in the world, and they taught me how to grow. I'm fortunate for that. And one of the things Mitch told me, which I never forget, is, just remember, Dave, the plants, they're natural. It's just like they're outside. Think what would happen if they were outside in the natural environment. Because us as indoor growers, we're just trying to play God over
That's
here,
right?
We're trying to control everything like outside. But when you hit a roadblock, try to bring it back to the basics. How does nature work? How does outside work? Right?
Yeah.
And it's tough to recreate that all the time, right? And I'd say, we're the first ones to admit, probably close to 80% of the time, it's human error. Like it's sad to say, but when something's wrong, someone didn't, we turned off a machine for some sort of procedure when we forgot to turn it back on. And, we have a checklist, but the checklist wasn't like, it's crazy how that rabbit hole you run down. But the issues that come out with a crop, most of the time it's a human that's involved in the process somewhere who forgot to do something or didn't do something or did something too much or whatever. Right.
So, Alex, you brought something up about, the data coming out from the SQDC is obviously important, and it's dialed in a lot better, I think, than some of the bullshit that we have to see in the other provinces. So right now you guys are Quebec and Alberta. Are you, where else?
Just Quebec, UK, Germany, Australia,
just
Africa also recently.
What?
Portugal.
Africa?
Yeah.
The hell? They're getting some good weed down there.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. But is that part of the decision making? Is you've got a roadmap, you understand the consumer, you understand the repeat buyer. You're talking about that 30% and 70%, and is that one of the reasons you're like, yeah, we'll stay in this market and then look at export? Or is it opportunities, you're getting better sell through, better pricing? What is the reasoning behind the export, I guess?
Well, definitely. So it's a far easier process at some point. So you need to be GACP. GACP is a half-invented regulation that actually doesn't realize. Like, I could start Alex GACP tomorrow and start certifying people. But GACP, there's Controlling and there's other. So you get GACP, which is basically GPP, but with better SOP. So you're just a little bit, stricter, and you trace more things. Suddenly, you can send kilos to Portugal, or where it's getting greenwashed, or basically you're sending unfinished product. They do a last GMP step, which is trimming or packaging, and instead of having to go through the entire process of, so whether it's the bureaucratic pressure of establishing a SKU in market with all the document that's needed, creating the brand, doing the packaging yourself, or finding partners, you can send kilos and get paid more than what you would have if you establish a brand. Wow. Right. So when we were talking about the advantage that we have currently and how we need to help Canada establish itself really as the worldwide leader in cannabis, again, historically speaking, I'm pretty sure we were the number one worldwide exporter of cannabis. 95% of all cannabis produced in Canada was shipped internationally, historically speaking. We were supplying the States. We were supplying Europe. It's not Colombia and Mexico that was supplying the weed in the world. Why? Not because Canada is better growers or anything. No, everybody can become a good grower. It's all about hard work, right? It's a determination, but I think every country could have excellent growers. We are the number one exporter because we have all the economical factor to make it happen. Right. So we have the space, we have the electricity, we have the know-how, we have the water. Water doesn't cost much here. So everything we do, even if the states open up federally, their costs of production are ridiculously high compared to ours, right? Like they're crying because they're getting $2 USD per gram. $2 USD per gram for
you guys would be driving Ferraris.
Exactly, right? So we need to just, what we did in the legacy market, we need to do on the legal market. So that's why we also need to strive for normalization, because no country in the world can produce indoor cannabis at the price that we produce it, with the standardization and regulations that we can accommodate, as far as also the experience we acquired. When we go down to the States, I was expecting a lot of expertise to some extent. I'm seeing guys telling us, you guys are 10, 15 years ahead, right? Most LPs in Cali that I've seen, their IPM program is running spray lines and spraying pesticides 3 times per week in their room, like some crazy stuff. They're barely regulated. There's, of course, great cannabis companies like Loom Cannabis was absolutely amazing. There's some good players down there. And, Michigan does have some very low electric prices also. Yeah. So there are a couple nests here and there that can compete, but not like Canada can produce right now. So that's why it's also so important to develop that expertise, and we will be supplying everybody worldwide. Europe has agreements to standardize the cost of electricity between countries. There's laws put in place to prevent Germany to be able to do war again, to not cause a third world war. So they they're not even allowed to go beyond a certain production of electricity. And the cost of 31 cents euro per kilowatt hour for sure puts us way ahead. And we're not even talking water. Over there, they have a counter of water for water coming in and water coming out, right? So they're paying twice. Wow. There's we simply need to make sure that the population understand the benefits of cannabis. How do we do that? We take cannabis out of cannabis. For example, what plant is used to do an Advil?
What plants is used? I don't even know.
Well, nobody gives a fuck. All we know is that
no one even thinks about it.
Good for headaches and pain management and et cetera. And we take it and it's normalized. So cannabis has so much pharmaceutical property, whether it's sleep aid, the inflammations,
hunger suppression.
Exactly. So
activation.
And once we're able to get that into general usage and people not even, taking out that cannabis logo, it's just a medication, natural medication for you to sleep or for you to eat. And that's how we get through the normalization. And that's how we can really boost basically everything that's behind cannabis, because it's all a big wheel turning. You're in the big boys here now. Yeah. We're talking lobbyists. We're talking, influence in government. What do you think's happening? We're fighting against big lobbying, pharma, alcohol, tobacco. They don't want to see us succeed. So we need to play the game. And basically, the government can't support more the cannabis industry as long as there's the stigma on it, because they're going to be losing votes.
Right.
So that's the road to normalization. We first need population to understand that we're not the bad guys. We're actually the good guys. The bad guys are feeding you alcohol and cigarettes and making you gamble. And we're only here to actually give you a natural product with no side effect that's going to alleviate the cost on the healthcare system and help the population and establish an expertise worldwide that's going to bring money into the country to secure the future of Canada. So we're only here for the good of the population. We can't shove it down their throat. It doesn't work that way. Nobody cares about terpenes and all of this right now because they still think cannabis is bad. So it's not by trying to ram that some of the expertise down their throat that we're going to get somewhere. We need first people. It's almost like tricking them into, hey, take that pill. It's really good for you. It's that. Oh, yes, it works really well. It was cannabis. And once we get there, they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
So,
well, man, you've put it in a way that I've never really thought about it, because we like to gripe about, the little pieces that we pick apart, right? By the way, when are you running for Prime Minister?
Maybe he's going to be the one. I'm here supporting the war.
Oh, yeah.
He's
okay.
back. He's the man.
Wow. Well, it makes a lot of sense as to why there's a global market for it, and export is obviously important. But also why that's what you're doing. But how did I want to ask a couple curious and fun questions, but how did Africa come about? Because I remember when South Africa was opening up as a market, but there's not a lot of people, I think, playing there.
We have a partner who works who's really good at finding partners all over the world, right? So we're fortunate to work with him, and he brought a deal to the table, and we've been able to transact. So it was exciting, and I think it's just the beginning of future things to come, right? There's 45 countries in the world that are looking at some sort of medical or recreational legalization.
160 now.
Oh, about it. Well, even better. 160. 3x. That was good. So, so we're good with that. And that's, again, we're that level of size of business that we don't need 160 countries, right? We need 3 good ones.
Right.
I think we picked a great partner here in Quebec with the SQDC. If we can find 3 or 4 jurisdictions internationally for us to work with and work closely. But, that just means if there's 160, there's 50 other Canadian companies that can have 3 countries
more to go around
to work with to be number 1 partners, right?
No,
I think there's a lot of grass out there for all of us to go have fun with. but we need to have the market. We need to work together to get it done.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad to see you guys are exporting. I wish you were in more provinces. I'm sure a lot of people do.
We do some, just a couple of things. We do some company. We work with some companies to fill some rotating SKUs throughout the country.
Yeah.
We find it's a better way to get to market, and we just don't have the sales. We don't want to put the sales force in place in these markets, right? Like in Ontario, you need a sales team of 3, 4, 10, 12 people, if depending on how you want to play that game.
Depending how you look at it. Yeah.
Well, there's also, I think that I like trusting the process, right? So I actually do strongly encourage everybody to ship internationally. Why? Because shipping internationally is currently easier than selling locally. And if we
What's
all
that
start,
say, right?
Well, exactly. If we all start shipping internationally, there's going to start having pressure to lower basically the regulation locally because it's not making business viable. The second there's no supply to meet the demand, people are going to fall back to the black market. If they fall back to the black market, the cannabis legalization is failing, aka it mandates to revisit the regulations are there. You need to understand the game we're playing if you want to play within the rules to make it happen, right? So sometimes just going in the street and screaming and chanting doesn't work, right? So if it's all money talks, if everybody's going internationally, people are going to start asking questions. We're already seeing it happen in some country like some provinces like Alberta. Like we had some talks with the AGL, right? And when I was there for the last Grow Up event. And so by doing that, we're going to be able to alleviate regulation to promote a healthy industry. But the longer we take to do that, the more we're giving advantage to other countries to possibly develop and, take over some of our market share, right?
Yeah.
So no, we need to trust the process. Everybody go international, and then by next year, maybe we'll see some regulation change,
Yeah. Well, and it makes me wonder. I'm always so skeptical of our government at times, right? For various reasons. But, all of a sudden they start seeing all this cannabis exporting. They just go, oh, we'll just control that. No more exports, right? God knows what they would try. Let me ask you this. Let's get into some fun questions here. Not that it hasn't been fun, because it has been. It's very informative. I'd like to understand from both of your perspectives, both your biggest, grandiose event, and I don't mean attending events, something that's happened while you've been in the industry that you reflect on and go, man, if I could only have more of those. But also on the flip side of that, your most challenging moment within the industry, legal side, regulated side.
I'm reflecting.
You're reflecting?
You have something?
Well, for me, there's a lot of success within Origin. It wasn't an industry-wide. We don't like to compare ourselves really to others, right? We keep knowledgeable of the industry, but we're really focused in on us. So for us to achieve 2 years in a row, Canada Greatest Place to Work. So we were 41st Greatest Place to Work in 2022, 22nd Greatest Place to Work in Canada in 2023. We're also nominated for this year. We're the only cannabis company to do so. So for me, achieving that, seeing that we have less than 5% turnover rate on over 100 employees, that we're putting so much value and love into our team, because at the end of the day, we only have one life, right? The goal of this is to step back and look back at what we did, and are we proud? Am I happy? Did I live the life I wanted to do? And that counts for everybody that's at Origin. So it's beyond cannabis. It's beyond, it's what we're doing. It's the same thing with why we chose Saint Agathe, right? We want to be a partner of economical development for the city we work with. We're the biggest employer in Saint Agathe currently. Saint Agathe was a 10,000 inhabitant city before. We're very implicated in the Chamber of Commerce. We want to be partners. We want to make a positive impact. Cannabis was never about being a gangster, was never being about a mafioso. Cannabis was always about the people, right? Giving back and community and sharing that spliff and sharing the moment and sharing knowledge. And we want to give back. So achieving really that we became the biggest employer. Not only are we the biggest employer in Saint Agathe, but we participate actively in the Chamber of Commerce, in which we've been recognized. And now nationally, we are recognized for how the team has been growing, how the company has been evolving, that we're profitable. So that mix, living that moment with the entire team, for me, has by far been the strongest impact in the industry, this career.
Love that. I love that. So cool.
Your turn.
It's funny because I was going to say the same thing, to be honest. The winning, so we won 22nd best employer for companies with 100 employees, or in the category of 100 under 100 employees, and that's across Canada, right? So you're compared, and we don't game anything, right? Anything we've ever won, whether it be Master Grower of the Year, whether it be Golden Goat Cannabis Cup, whether it be employer, there's no gamification from our side. We ask people in the opportunities, can you go and vote for us? Of course, we all do, but
Of course,
we don't have some bot like pressing buttons, it's legitimate votes, legitimate wins. We've never paid to win something. Canada's, people might not know this, but Canada's top employer, like that process, you need a high percentage of your employees to fill out a 15-20 minute comprehensive survey, asking questions a whole lot of different ways. And then that's the rating, right? And some of those questions are tough, like how do you get along with your team, and how open and honest are you amongst each other, and everything else, and how do you, my job in the company is the culture of the company, the business. I'm referred to internally as Santa Claus because I guess I'm generous, but all I'm ever trying to do is make it a stronger and better team of people. Alex knows way more about plant science than me, and I'm good with that, right? Like,
yeah.
And you can't know it all. You can't be it all. It's about team, and it's about aces in their places. We say right people in the right spots, and living that journey as a team and as a family together. There's that's the greatest thing to come. And when you say what are the challenges, I have to go with there's been some people that have got off the bus along the way. Either we asked them to that here's your stop, or maybe they said maybe they said it's time for me to jump off, and that's part of it too. We have a really low retention or rollover rate. You have a high retention rate, but it doesn't matter. When you lose a member of your family, you lose a member of your family, right? And some of these people were part of the journey, and we'll always remember them, we'll always respect them. And I think that's for sure a difficult moment for us, right? Anytime we lose somebody who we consider an asset for whatever reason, and it's business, it's life. I mean,
sure,
it's gonna happen. Well, when people leave, people have left our organization to better themselves and try newer and better things and succeed in different things. We're the first ones to promote that, even if it's in our industry, even if it's with a competitor, right? Like, right? We just want to see the industry flourish as a whole. So, but there's other things that happen over time, and I think that's for when your job is to build culture.
Yeah.
When you miss it, you definitely feel like,
well, when you miss it, you're way off.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if I talk about my darkest moment in the industry, that it's exactly related to that, right? So before I joined Origine, I had a taste of the good industry when we, people were worth $5 billion and we were throwing money left and right, and nobody gave a fuck, and everything was nice and dandy. And then I was part of the industry when the people were not worth $5 billion, and suddenly it became very cutthroat. And one of the defining moments for a lot of us is when we got that first call back in 2017, 2018, where it's you're hired. That I tell that story often, but a lot of us cried, and a lot of us called our mom. You can finally be happy. You can finally be proud. We're finally doing something respectable, etc. Right? And it was so emotional that there was a lot of us that devoted ourselves. We bled for cannabis, man. There's many times I came out of production room either covered in blood, not sleeping. Going in room with, 25,000 ppm CO2, trying not to breathe, to fucking open a vent and not die in the same time. The crazy shit we did along the way. And, the people that were hiring us, or the people over us, there was a lot of, not necessarily, a lot of unqualified personnel. There were a lot of backstabbing. There was a lot, I did a burnout. I was out for a while. A lot of stuff happened, and it was very, very cutthroat for a while. And I saw how it can be toxic to be in the wrong team led by the wrong people. Now, I'm not saying that there was a lot of bad people, but it can be hard to understand how your decision can impact others if you're not trained to be a manager or a team leader. You don't have that in you, or etc. And with the hyperinflation, we We also had the privilege of getting, I would say, some of the worst from other industries that got burned in their first industry. So that did the jump up to cannabis, and a lot of toxic behavior got promoted thanks to that. So yeah, I think a lot of people got a bad side of the industry, and that really gave them a sour taste in the mouth. And that's why you hear a lot of bad, a lot of bad reviews, I would say, around people that work. And that's why also when I saw Origine and I saw how we were attached to discovering who we were, right? That's why we discovered our 4 core values: family, passion, street smart, and social consciousness. We didn't invent them. When you invent core values, people see through it, it becomes bullshit, everything becomes toxic. We really sat down and like, who are we? And that's how we hire, that's how we promote, that's how we decide who we're going to do business with. And it's very rewarding to be able to be yourself. Some of the most successful companies in the world, right? Like let's say Nike, their core value is crush the competition. When you step into that hallway at the Nike headquarters, it's a hallway that's, full of athletes, high-level athletes, and you can feel right away that's a pressure to perform. And if you don't have that in you, you auto disqualify yourself because you feel you're not in your place. Well, same thing with us. If you don't have that family in you, if you don't want to be part and care for others and listen to them and take the time to grow together, and you just want to do a quick flip of money and, treat people like numbers, you're going to auto disqualify yourself because you're going to hit a lot of wall in trying to treat people like numbers that you should.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes perfect sense. You're talking about what drew you to Origine. It was, Dave. And I still remember, from the days of Ample, we were a fledgling technology company that was trying to solve compliance issues, right? And create software that you wanted to use. That does not come without challenge, right? But I still remember my meetings with Dave because it would run up through the account managers and eventually Tom would end up on a call. And Dave was still just the smiling, most humble, accommodating individual. You could tell he's pissed. He's pissed at times, but it wouldn't be. We had other clients on the flip side of that, similar to what you're saying, Alex, where, those early days, they're just banging tables and they're mad and they're thinking, that's not going to help. I'm still going to do everything I can to help you, but that's not going to help anything. And Dave understood that. He's like, listen, this guy's being genuine with me. He's got Teams dispatch. Wes was in the room in a lot of these calls, handling the support side and, the customer operations. And it just makes sense. You can tell that, for me, I've always looked at culture for a company is always top down. It's always from the leadership, right? And the best companies, the leadership doesn't put themselves on pedestals. Proper leadership always comes from underneath, right? Are you supporting your team? That's a true leader. The leaders are the ones that are going to push you to do better, not be the ones that are just banging all the time. You need to do better. You need to do better, right? So it makes a lot of sense. And I love that you've both shared those stories with me
Tom,
and our audience.
Not in words, much appreciated.
And as much truth as I can state. But listen, guys.
Just for the record, my favorite memory of those meetings was always Jay taking a puff of his vape on the meeting. We still laugh at it.
His nickname, that's why he got what was his nickname, Wes?
Puff Daddy or something
Puff Daddy, I think it was.
Yeah,
you got the nickname. I think that's why we banned
anymore.
vaping in the office, was he's just filling it full of clouds, right? Listen, gents, I could talk to you guys forever. Obviously, we're going to spend some time in person when we can, but it's been an absolute honor having you on. We love Origine. We love your story. We love everything you're doing. And we'll figure out ways that people can understand where Origine product is in market in other places as well. But we wish you the continued success that you deserve. You guys are just awesome.
Thanks, Tom. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wes. And thank you, Alex, as well, brother.
Thank you, good sir. And thank you guys for having us. And actually, we've been very excited to be on the Legacy Podcast. It's definitely one on our bucket list. So
it's our first podcast together, by the way. This is,
wow. Nice.
So honored. Keep this in the vault somewhere.
Yeah. You got it. Well, thanks for joining, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
Well, there we have it. If we learned anything, culture is important.
I think it'd be a real tough. It'd be real tough to have a bad time at that company with those two guys there. Just.
Well, I mean, and even the time we spent with Graydon, right? It was how important culture is, understanding candidates, their fit within the culture, and then we didn't even plan that. It just came to be.
Underlying theme of the episode.
Yeah, but I also knew, again, the interaction that I've had with Dave, from years and years ago was he's just easy to work with. I'm not going to say forgiving necessarily, but he's easy to work with to the point where he gets it. He's not, he's not out to chop heads off.
No.
If you're failing in an area, he'll do what he can to support you, and you can tell that's the way that culture is formed there. And man, Alex painted where Canada needs to be in a different light that I've never really looked at, which is, we're not going to get anywhere just beating Health Canada and the authorities over the head with it. We have to prove.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I told you it'd be a packed episode.
It is a packed episode. We've still got a packed day, but it's
always lots to do.
Always.
It's never easy over here. There's lots to do. Anyways, we thank everyone for tuning into Legacies. We hope you enjoyed the podcast.